Call to order. Planning Commission, public hearing and regular session. Roll call.
Grossman present.
Giannico present.
Strew present.
McCoy present.
Buda present.
Holloway present.
We have a quorum.
Dick Charles Town Council, public hearing with the planning commission joint, roll call.
Grossman present.
Holloway present.
Buckles present. Palmer present.
That's present.
O'Brien present.
Let me know when to stop.
We will all stand for a moment of silence, followed by the pledge. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. The Cape Charles Planning Commission will hold a public hearing with the Cape Charles Town Council pursuant to Cape Charles Zoning Ordinance Section 2.7.1 on Tuesday, July 13th, 2021 at 6 p.m. in the Cape Charles Civic Center, 500 Tazewell Avenue, to receive comment on zoning text amendments to Section 3.14, General Business, Light Industrial H1, GBI H1 as follows. Allows assembly and/or storage of products as a by right use under Section 3.14B, paren 14. Allow buildings up to 75 feet in height with a required setback of 125 feet through a conditional use permit, Section 3.14C, paren 2. Other minor changes. The Cape Charles Planning Commission will hold a joint public hearing with the Cape Charles Town Council to receive comments on a request by Southport Investors, LLC, to rezone 1201 Bayshore Road, tax map number 90-8-1A1, which is approximately 11.79 acres, from Harbor District H to General Business Light Industrial H1, GBI H1, for proposed use of manufacturing, assembly, and storage of products pursuant to Cape Charles Zoning Ordinance Section 2.7.2. This property is under contract for sale contingent upon this rezoning request to permit light industrial uses pursuant to the Cape Charles Zoning Ordinance GBI H1 district. The Planning Commission will hold a meeting immediately following the public hearing to consider both requests. The Town Council will hold their meeting on July 22nd. At this time, I'm going to have the zoning administrator say some words.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. I know it's very warm and hot in here. We're doing the best we can to move this along quickly. I felt it would be useful before we hear public comments to ensure everybody has the lay of the land and knows exactly where we're talking about within the county, within the town, so we did want to go through the map very quickly. As indicated, this is the parcel, if everyone can see me, and we gave handouts if you have them, of the parcel in question that's being proposed for rezoning. Its current designation is the harbor. It's proposing to go to the GBI Light Industrial Harbor 1. There are other parcels that have that zoning designation today. Adjacent to it, this has that zoning designation. So does this parcel. And I know many of you are aware this little parcel was sold for storage, a storage company. The larger parcel over here is owned by Southport Investors. This small little parcel, which is adjacent to the concrete plant, is also zoned GBI Light Industrial H1. We have a couple of parcels that we think are zoned harbor. There is some confirmation we're still trying to do through the town records, because some of this got renamed a couple of years ago when the Sustainable Technologies Industrial Park went out of business and the town renamed all of those zoning districts. So we're still working on that issue. With that said, I did want to give you a cleaner picture without all of the other parcels and their parcel numbers up there, so it's a little easier to read. One of the items we did want to stress, which is not on the county GIS system at this point, which is where all of these maps came from, is that large parcel that is owned by Southport investors did petition the town in March for a subdivision of this little pink, I guess it's pink or orange on the screen, parcel. It's about 15 acres. And that was approved. So it is now its own unique parcel. It still has the same zoning designation of GBI H1, but it's only about 15 acres in size. In terms of its width, from where it adjacent to the residential PUD properties to the other side of the original Southport property, it's about 75 feet off the top of my head. And if I've got that number a little bit wrong, I know Southport will correct me later this evening, but I wanted to give you some idea of the dimensions, the width dimensions of that parcel. It is a very narrow strip, and I do believe their intention is to eventually have a little side road go along that parcel at some point. To help you a little bit further, we did put the aerial, so again, so that you can see, I know that's a little easier to see where the concrete plant is. It's over here on this corner. And then as you work your way in, this little one is their parking area for their employees. As we go further down, there's that little building down there. Many of you know that now with Fuji Wako Chemicals is operating in there. This is, again, the parcel just north of the Wako Chemicals that is being proposed for the rezoning and is part of the text amendment that would benefit from that text amendment change. Along with these parcels would benefit from any changes that are made to the GBI H1 zoning text amendment proposal. I am including one more slide, or two slides in total, because I've fielded several questions over the last few days about the impact of wetlands. So I did a wetlands overlay onto the maps you've already seen. And yes, there are wetlands that will be on the proposed parcel that is up for rezoning, but there are wetlands throughout this area. It is this shaded green area. All of these are areas of wetlands. All that means is that's just a condition anybody who owns that property will have to address, identify, and deal with in accordance with the wetlands ordinance. It doesn't mean they get to ignore it. They just have to ensure a development plan is incorporated the wetlands that are on the property and have to work around that, possibly either through remediation or only to utilize the property where there are no wetlands. Again, we gave you, the last slide I'm including is the aerial showing again the wetlands there, because it's sometimes easier when you know what's on the ground, how that really lays out. So I just wanted everyone to have the lay of the land where we are in the town and the relation of that to the harbor in particular. So I'm going to come back over here where I don't have the wetlands on. So again, there is some distance from the actual harbor itself to where this property is proposed for rezoning. We just wanted to make you aware of it. So I hope that helps as we move forward in this conversation this evening.
Thank you, Katie. Okay, before we start the public hearing process, just want to make sure you are all aware that the public comment period is 3 minutes per speaker, which is what has always been the requirement. There was a publication of 5 minutes that was not announced by the town, but by a public citizen. So I just wanted to make sure. Now, if somebody wants to give up their time for somebody else to speak, that's allowable. However, you do not get to speak. Is that changed?
Bill, according to the citizen participating guidelines that we currently have, the minutes cannot be transferred to somebody else.
Okay.
That changed back in 2013.
All right. So it's 3 minutes per speaker.
We have both the written list and we have a slew of written comments that have come in. Which would you like to take up first? Those in attendance?
Let's do the ones in attendance first.
Here you go, Bill.
When I call your name, please come forward. And please state your name and your address. First is Phil Goetkin.
I'm Phil Goetkin, and I live at 602 Jefferson Avenue here in Cape Charles. Conservation and protection of the trees and tree canopy is a well-documented high priority for the citizens of Cape Charles. Just take a look at the language included in the recently approved strategic planning document and our most recently approved comprehensive plan. Take a look at our master tree plan, or take a look at Appendix F of the zoning ordinance, otherwise known as the Tree Conservation and Preservation Ordinance. All of these documents reinforce the critical importance of trees in this town. The intent of the master tree plan and the zoning ordinance is to develop a vibrant green infrastructure in all of our town's districts by protecting existing trees and promoting the planting of new trees. Appendix F of the zoning ordinance applies to all undeveloped property and property undergoing redevelopment. It requires a 10% tree canopy cover for any site zone, business, commercial, or industrial. It also requires a permit before any tree may be destroyed or removed. The Town Council, the Planning Commission, and the town staff need to work together to ensure the tree preservation and conservation ordinance is strictly administered and enforced. The zoning text changes and zoning being discussed tonight will certainly enable coastal precast systems or whoever might develop the property in question to increase the industrial base of the town. I think we can all agree that economic development is a good thing, more jobs and an increased tax base. At the same time, we need to be aware of the potential environmental cost the development of these properties might create, potentially up to 86 acres. The precious natural resources on these properties are at risk, the forest and all of the plants and animals that exist within them. A property owner has the right to develop her or his property in any way the laws, rules, and regulations permit. However, it is critical that development be done in an environmentally and ecologically sustainable manner. The development that has occurred in this area of town over the past several years has fallen dramatically short. Trees have been clear-cut all the way to property lines. As recently as last week, more trees were being cut down. If the zoning changes proposed are approved, it is my belief and fear that the trees on the properties in question will be clear-cut as well, thereby permanently changing these critical natural landscapes forever. Before any decision is made on the zoning text changes or the zoning request, I am requesting that a detailed tree plan following the zoning ordinance be submitted and approved. It is critical to know which trees will be saved and how these trees will be saved. Also, this plan should also be made public to ensure that all citizens of this town are aware of what the consequences of this development could be.
Time's up.
Thank you.
Margaret Ballard.
Good evening, Chairman Stram and members of the Commission. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the proposed changes in the text of the Cape Charles zoning ordinances, which would allow rezoning of parcel 98-1A1 from harbor to general business light industrial. My name is Margaret Ballard. My husband and I reside full-time at 115 Mason Avenue. I want to emphasize that my husband and I are not opposed to precast coastal systems. We applaud the efforts of Dan McGee, the plant manager, and the owners for keeping the doors of communication open. Our request is that the Planning Commission and Town Council create a much stronger vision of integrating the goals of coastal precast with the goals of all of the town's citizens, voters, and property owners. I also respectfully request that you delay the ordinance change until these proposals from coastal precast and the parcel owner have had a chance to be considered and completely reviewed by the boards and commissions the town council has put in place to represent its citizens. I would now like to review the purposes of the GBH district outlined in the current zoning ordinance. Purpose of the district: general business light industrial is a planned mixed industrial and employment park with a comprehensive development plan. The purpose of the district is to encourage the revitalization of the local industrial economy in historic port of Cape Charles and Northampton County. Create family wage employment and training opportunities for local residents. Serve as a model and national prototype of an integrated approach to land development and industrial operations, embodying sustainable approaches to the local economy, environment, and culture. Serve as a model for advancing the traditional settlement patterns of the Eastern Shore's towns and employment centers. Incorporate comprehensive, cost-effective approaches to resource conservation, wise use of renewable resources, and ecologically based industrial development in all aspects of design and development of the project. If the ordinance changes are passed without review by the various town organizations, where are the guardrails to ensure these purposes are fulfilled? Will the Commission recommend and the town enact amendments that support these purposes? Thank you.
Thank you. Joe Natalie.
Good evening. My name is Joan Natalie, and I reside at 110 Blue Heaven Road in Cape Charles. I have reviewed the complete agenda package and also reviewed the zoning ordinance referred to and under consideration tonight. In general, I support the recommended revisions to Article 3 of the zoning ordinance and the rezoning of the tax map 90-8-1A1 located at 1201 Bayshore Road from Harbor District to General Business Light Industrial H1. However, I have three concerns that I would like the Planning Commission and the Town Council to consider in their deliberations. First, I understand that the change to the GBI H1 district conditional use paragraph adds to statement 2, quote, "or building or structure other than building may be constructed to a maximum height of 75 feet if the building is set back at least 125 additional feet from the required setback for all yards abutting residential properties." I understand that any proposed development of a property in this district has to apply for and go through the conditional use process. That process includes review and public hearings before a permit is either granted or denied prior to development of the property. I personally think a height of 75 is too high for the town. Consider the following zoning ordinance height regulations for the districts currently in that area. The Harbor District, 40-foot height, 55 with a conditional use. GBI District and Industrial District M1, 45 feet. Industrial District M2, 45 feet for buildings, 50 for structures other than buildings. General Business Light Industrial H1, 40 feet for buildings, 50 for structures other than buildings, with the conditional use structures other than buildings exceeding 50 feet and buildings over 40 feet but equal to less than 50 feet. I would like you to revise the 75-foot height maximum to 55, which I believe is the highest height currently stated in the town zoning ordinance. Second, I am concerned that Section F, additional development requirements, number 9, the removal of sirens and other devices from the code. Please consider adding wording to ensure that noise from sirens or other devices are not so loud as to become a public noise nuisance to nearby residential neighborhoods and neighboring businesses in the area. If not now, maybe the subject can be considered in the near future. Third, please do everything you can to ensure that as many trees, bushes, and plantings,
Thank you.
thank you.
Shannon Alexander.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your service and your time. My name is Shannon Alexander. I'm not a resident of Cape Charles. I actually live in Accomack County, so my address is Quail Lane. I serve as the Coastal Region Steward for the Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation, and that's in the Division of Natural Heritage. DCR is the owner of the approximately 50-acre Cape Charles Natural Area Preserve.
A little louder, please. Move your mic up.
Oh. Thank you. Adjacent to the properties in question. It's one of 9 natural area preserves on the eastern shore, all of which are conserved and managed for biodiversity, conservation, and public access. DCR's inventory biologists have documented significant conservation values on these parcels, in particular an acidic oak hickory forest type with chinkapin oak and bitternut hickory, which is rare in the entire coastal plain and especially rich when compared with other eastern shore mature forests. Existing mature forests like this one are providing important habitat for birds and other wildlife. This area is hemispherically important for migratory and breeding birds and has been documented as a land bird migratory concentration area. In addition to biodiversity values, this tract could also provide important public access values in Cape Charles and on the eastern shore. The socioeconomic impacts of conserved lands on Virginia's eastern shore, a study completed by George Mason University in 2017, quantified the clear benefits of conserved lands in Northampton County. Demand for conserved lands and public access lands, particularly on the eastern shore, has never been greater, as was evidenced during and since the pandemic, for both residents and visitors alike. The open green space economic and conservation values for these parcels in their current condition should be considered in making this decision. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Beverly Steffy.
I'd like to thank the Planning Commission Board for the opportunity to express my concerns regarding the request to change the text of the General Business Light Industrial H1 zoning district and to rezone parcel 90-8-1-I-A1 from Harbor to GB/LIH1. It took years to develop and implement a comprehensive plan that has decidedly contributed to our town's renaissance. And I just worry that a rushed decision to approve the request can potentially undermine the rejuvenation that our charming little town has witnessed. I think it would be prudent that the board defer any decision at this juncture so that a thorough evaluation of these significant changes to our landscape and to the long-term vision for Cape Charles can be considered. After all, what exactly is Cape Charles gaining from this whole proposition? The potentially detrimental consequences to our economy, specifically the tourist industry, and to our quality of life, specifically the noise pollution, needs to be honestly and accurately assessed. That's why it's incumbent upon the Planning Commission Board to defer at this time a decision on the approval of the text changes and the rezoning of parcel 90-8-1A1 until proper evaluation of business and environmental impact can be completed. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Susan Ida. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Susan Idem. I'm grateful to address the
Your
Planning Commission
address,
and the...
please. Address.
646 Tazewell Avenue, right here in town. I am grateful to address the Planning Commission and the Town Council. With respect for residents, business, and regulatory input has made Cape Charles a wonderful place. My comments address the importance of effective zoning ordinances with respect to time, transparency, and process. My goal is not to influence an outcome, but ask questions about how the process leading to the outcome can be as inclusive as possible. Your decisions affect the way we live, legislate, vote, and develop economically. Planning commissioners invest time, expertise, and thorough study with everyone's best interests in mind to ensure that ordinances remain effective over time and that changes evolve consistently with the comprehensive plan. Prudence and due diligence are the foundation of any resilient framework. In the rezoning and text amendment application before the Planning Commission tonight, two parties have rightfully sought modifications to existing zoning and text of zoning ordinance. There is no criticism here. Business people with an interest in bringing more commerce to Cape Charles and be profitable, it's positive economic development. A sound proposal is one where the shared interests of the industry, residents, property stability, and environmental sustainability are considered. Our planning commissioners can assure they are making quality decisions by engaging the community before a resolution is advanced to town council. For the commission to exercise due diligence, consult with citizen groups, boards, commissions, and agencies may encourage and refine the initial proposal. But it takes time. Time to review zoning, maps, and ordinance text. Time to study staff reports. Time to ask questions. No commission, regardless of expertise, can submit to a council a well-considered opinion in a week. Council should respect the time it takes for the commission to submit a more informed recommendation. The practice of swiftly renegotiating planning, zoning, and ordinance language to accommodate an implied sense of urgency often means we compromise our responsibility to fully explore and question the implications that those changes mean to the public at large. In summary, I request that citizens have ample time to read and study related documents and seek out our elected council members to ask questions and offer insights before a resolution is passed. Changes that have such a visible impact on the landscape of the town, they can be scary. Let's mitigate the presumptive fear that can snowball into hostility and distrust. Let's replace it with a framework where community partners meet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Arnie Fook? Or Arnie?
Arnie Fook, 547 Mason Avenue. The one thing that I'd like to keep in mind, to remind people of, is it sounds to me like this is a zoning change. And that what we'd like to keep in mind is if there's a zoning change and it becomes spot zoning, that everybody in town should benefit by the outcome of this, not one person or one corporation. And that's pretty much what I'd like to keep in mind for the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Tillotson?
Good evening. I'm Mark Tillotson, live at 216 Blue Heaven Road. I strongly encourage the Planning Commission to reject the proposed zoning changes written by Coastal Precast Systems and submitted by Mr. Arnie Baldwin. We disagree with Mr. Baldwin's assertion that the previous rezoning of Lot 83A3-11-2 set a precedent. That lot is further from the residential area of Bay Creek, and the rezoning was in keeping with the nature of the land use plan for the harbor in the comprehensive plan, since it was planned to be a yacht repair facility. The change in zoning was needed to allow for the building of the repair facility. However, for the lot in question, 90-8-1A1, it is closer to the residential property and not anticipated to support harbor planning, so it is not the same. We feel no precedent has been set. Action must be evaluated on its own merit. Currently, we live at the north end of the Hollies. Already, the existing noise from CPS plant is obnoxiously loud. This proposal brings additional sounds even closer to within a quarter mile of our house. But we contend just as we are dissatisfied with the level of noise that exists today from even greater distance, expanding the industrial operations towards Bay Creek would put the sale of the new residential lots at Bay Creek and the Bluffs, to include Muirfield Bluffs being advertised now, and Village J at higher risk. This certainly would not be good for the economic benefit of Cape Charles, since all of these residents shop on Main Street, eat at town restaurants, and generally support Cape Charles economically. This rezoning is obviously opportunistic for some at the expense of others in Cape Charles. Cape Charles has previously modified the comprehensive plan and approved a revised zoning without additional study. As a former U.S. Army Corps of Engineers leader in charge of environmental planning and a former Department of Veterans Affairs leader in charge of community planning, I am intimately aware of how supposed minor changes to a city plan can have a large unintended but negative impact on the local environment and economy. Based on my reading of the Planning Commission staff recommendation, it appears the town is prepared to continue to incrementally change the zoning map by fiat rather than to fully study the effects in the land use plan for Cape Charles. In my mind, this is death by 1,000 cuts. This could also have a domino effect on other properties in the area without due diligence. For example, has an environmental impact study been prepared, complete with an analysis of alternative impacts to determine the effects from point source pollution control into the Chesapeake Bay, air pollution control, a noise level study, or VDOT road study to determine the effect of traffic and the safety of town residents and visitors. We contend that rezoning is premature and that Cape Charles and its citizens do not have sufficient knowledge of this proposal to make this decision at this time as a consequence of the implementation. We feel that the negative impact to the community outweighs the benefits. We strongly encourage the Planning Commission to reject the proposed zoning changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Sue Tillotson.
My husband is a hard act to follow. My name is Sue Tillotson. I also live at 216 Blue Heaven Road. The July 2021, just this month, issue of Southern Living has an article entitled "The Best Little Beach Town in Virginia. Cape Charles has been flying under the radar, but not anymore." The article talks about historic Cape Charles as the economic hub of the Eastern Shore until the decline of the railroad industry. Now, more than 50 years later, this salty little hamlet has officially made a comeback, holding tight to its small town character, even as it welcomes a new and growing crowd of beach lovers. This, to me, is a question of who are we and who are we going to be? And I totally associate myself with the fine speakers previously that talk about the specifics of air and land and peace and quiet and wildlife and economic development. It's just that changing the zone text will have a negative effect to this small town character, in my belief. We do not support changing the height of buildings to 75 feet. This is 1.5 times higher than any structure in Cape Charles other than the water tower. The water tower, our symbol. Likewise, for any other new owners, the provision for 75 feet high buildings in this area also would create the possibility of looming high-rise buildings over future residential areas. As mentioned above, we strongly disagree with changing the text to allow sirens and OSHA warning signals so close to a residential area. We understand this is to be in the economic interest of some entities, but it feels like this is the town equivalent of clear cutting of a forest for strip mining extractions, which you cannot suddenly reverse course and restore. You can expect there will be a rise in temperatures due to increased concrete building and/or buildings where once stood groves of cooling and CO2 absorbing woods. Plus, flooding is more likely to be exacerbated on paved or hard packed ground. So ask yourself, please, these questions, which have not been answered to our satisfaction without a study. What is the effect on local agriculture? What is the effect on local wildlife? And ultimately, what will be the effect on the quality of life for residents and tourists in Cape Charles? These are not some tree hugger perspective. Cape Charles is a town with a permanent population of around 1,000, which swells to 4,000 in the season. Those tourists and visitors are outdoorsy people attracted by...
Thank you.
Got it.
Philippa Wilcox.
Chairman Strom and Commissioners, thanks. My name's Philippa Wilcox, and I live...
Pull the microphone closer.
Down a little bit?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
my name's Philippa Wilcox, and I live at 401 Casat Knoll. My family moved here to access the natural resources that we have in this town. Can't hear me? Oh my goodness. Hang on. My family moved here to access the natural resources, be part of this community. We found lots of friendship. We developed lots of activities, and we want to be part of the future of Cape Charles, which leads me to asking, very similar to the last speaker, what kind of community do we want to be? We spent time, and I was on the marketing committee, to brand Cape Charles. We branded it Virginia's Cape. What does that mean? What are the words that come to mind? I'm not here to thwart progress. I'm certainly a believer in progress. But what I am here to do as a community member is I want to ensure that we make decisions that are really in alignment with our vision. My ask is that you pause and take a look at what you've been working on, which is the 2019 Comprehensive Plan, correct? And which really will form a framework for decision-making that we can use in this instance and in future instances, as opposed to having one-offs along the way. So that's my ask. Let's complete this comprehensive plan, and then these things will, in essence, fall into that plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Leslie McGinnis. Leslie McGinnis.
That's a scratch.
Dave Wilcox.
I also signed the sheet.
Here's your chance, 3 minutes.
Bobby Masters. Chris Shepard.
Evening, folks. Thank you very much for allowing me to, can everybody hear? Yeah, good? Thanks for allowing me to address you all and also put forth my objection in regards to the zoning change. I don't believe it's being done properly, and I think that it would be good to defer it, but it would be better to kill it. I mean, I liken Cape Charles to a very pretty face. Currently, you drive into Cape Charles and you get out on Mason Road and you look over the harbor and you see that pretty face and it's got 2 teeth knocked out. I'm afraid in the future, were any changes that could be possible under this change, will present us with a face that's bruised, with black eyes and split lips, along with missing teeth. So gentlemen,
ladies, please, kill this thing now. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me remind you to please state your name and your address. Chris Shepherd's next. Oh, was it? I'm sorry.
Number 3.
Bruce Evans.
I'm Bruce Evans, and I live at 652 Tazewell Avenue here in Cape Charles. I've been a resident for about 28 years, as most of you know. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. I don't have a lot to say, but I would say that I am in total occurrence with most of the people that have talked here tonight. I feel very, very certain that this is a rush to judgment, a run for the checkered flag, i.e. this dual meeting. We should have meetings, probably 4 or 5 of these, for people to discuss this openly and honestly. There are many aspects in the town that have gone awry, that we have not followed the ordinances. We have done everything we can to subvert them, i.e. the historic district, the historic commission that this town works so hard and is one of our largest assets other than the beach in this beautiful town. I implore you to turn this down, and as this gentleman said just before me, kill it. And if you don't do that, please, please, please put it on the table and let's consider it. But don't rush this thing and kill this town.
Thank you. Mike Means.
Yeah, I'm going to pass. Any comments have been made clear and to the point.
Dave Doherty.
Dave Doherty, I reside at 509 Nectarine. I agree with most of what's been said. Phil, we need trees. We need to preserve them. We also need economic progress. So it's a complex issue. We need to find a way to grow our economy here, and we need a way to preserve the image of our town. And it takes time. Time is what we need. We can't make this decision like that. You're not going to make the right one. That's for sure. And we do need to make the right decision here. I'm all for green energy. If they want a 75-foot structure because it's a wind tower to generate green energy, that's something we should think about. If it's because it's a 7-story hotel, that's something to think about too, for a different reason. And we need to know more. If they're going to manufacture green energy components, what does that entail? Are they going to be working with heavy metals, with rare earth? Are there things that we need to be very aware of, and that they are contained, and that there's not runoff of heavy metal contaminant? We don't know. We just got that. And that's not enough information to make a decision on when we're looking at the consequences of things like that. And the other thing I would suggest, if you want to revise, you've restricted traffic by rail and road to this area. Why not water? That's why noise is made late at night, because they're bringing barges in at night. Cut them off too from 11 a.m. to 5 a.m. and the noise will reduce at that time. I'm sure of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Payne.
Thank you, Chairman Stram, Mayor Diaz. My name is Bill Payne. I live at 103 Arnie's Loop in Cape Charles. I think that we ought to guard ourselves from being myopic and selfish. The issue is not Cape Charles. The issue is Northampton County, and further to that, Eastern Shore. We are part of a major brand, the Eastern Shore. Cape Charles is the minor brand, part of the shore, And as we are successful in Cape Charles, I hope we're successful in the Eastern Shore. Success is measured by economic development. We lack jobs. The issue, bottom line, is jobs. And we should do nothing that will interfere with growing the job opportunity for the poor people who surround this enclave called Cape Charles. We shouldn't be selfish. I urge you to move ahead with all urgency, no delay. In fact, as I sat here listening to the conversations, it reminded me of Eisenhower and the D-Day Normandy invasion. He spent less time figuring that out than we're trying to figure out adding about 50 jobs to our economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Lauren Wigand.
Hi, good evening. My name is Laura Wigand, and my wife and I live at 632 Madison Avenue. We've owned our house for about 5 years now and moved here full-time this year. We bought our home originally to be our retirement home because we fell in love with the beautiful, peaceful community, the wildlife, the bay. And when the pandemic hit last year, it really made us reassess our values. And we decided it was time to move now to enjoy life as we could in our happiest, healthiest life that we could, and that's here at our home in Cape Charles. We oppose the amendment of the zoning because we have moved from Los Angeles, and it's kind of ironic that we escaped an area of overcrowding, concrete jungles, and industry. And we came here to lead a peaceful, quiet life. And it's kind of ironic now that we're here battling a large industry. So I urge you to at least table it. I would urge you to vote no. It destroys wildlife, wetlands that are invaluable here. The Chesapeake Bay, I go walking on the beach every day, I pick up trash, and it just amazes me how much plastic and cigarette butts and things like that I find on the beach. And one more thing leaching into the waters just kills off our wildlife. And as you can see by the overwhelming response here of the citizens here that live in the city, or the town of Cape Charles, that there's overwhelming response of people against it. Now, the gentleman before me has stated about jobs. Yes, jobs are important. I understand that because I gave up my job to move here. So there's many different types of jobs. It doesn't have to rely on one type of industry. And in fact, I really fully believe that an eyesore of more industrial buildings along our coastline, as it has grown since the last time I was here 2 years ago, it has grown exponentially and kind of astounding. I can't imagine the people on Mason and the merchants that rely on tourism to come up and down and have to deal with the noise pollution of the industry going on, the concrete plant going on. I wasn't even aware of sirens, so that's another huge noise pollution. The shanty has people wanting to dine on the outdoor patio, and that's difficult to do when you have dust from the concrete plant. You can see it. I ate there not too long ago, and you can see it billowing up when they're doing whatever it is they're doing with the concrete dust. And so I really feel like there's other ways that we can improve the economy here. This town relies a lot on tourism, and we could focus on that.
Thank you. That's all that signed up. We will now hear from those that submitted their comments.
This is from Nick and Paul Tiffany. This is, we feel that The Cape Charles natural area and the surrounding wetlands should be preserved as much as possible to protect the unique habitat environment and the wildlife that reside there. For this reason, we do not agree with the rezoning request. Again, that was from Nick and Paul Tiffany, 22650 Bender's Lane.
Could you move the mic closer, please?
Is that better?
Yes.
This is from David J. Parham. Dear Mayor Dyes and honorable members of Town Council and Commissioners, I'm going to skip that part because you all know why everyone's writing in. I believe these zoning changes could have a huge impact on the residents, businesses, and general environment in the Cape Charles, and any decision related to zoning changes should not be rushed through without proper and complete review. I don't feel that an educated decision on this matter could be made without such a thorough and complete Siri wants to answer questions for me. Complete review of all considerations and impacts, and cannot imagine how the Planning Commission and Town Council could decide without a complete comprehensive review. I respectfully request that any decision be postponed until all potential impacts are thoroughly studied. I would suggest that all the various boards and commissions we have in Cape Charles should be given the opportunity to review any and all impacts of the proposed zoning changes. These include, but not limited to, the Wetlands and Dune Commission, Harbor District Review Board, Tree Advisory Board, and whoever is in charge of the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance. In addition, environmental impact studies should be conducted and impact of sound and dust pollution seriously considered. We all agree that new business growth is desirable. However, years of comprehensive reviews, along with professional consultation, has set the comprehensive plan which is currently in place and has led to a rebirth of Cape Charles. The existing planning and zoning should not be hastily changed without a complete and proper evaluation of the economic impact to downtown businesses, commercial property values, taxes, and impact on tourism, along with any environmental impacts. This is a serious issue and requires a complete and thorough investigation before any decision is made. Thank you for your consideration. Best regards, David J. Parham. This is from Karen Reed Lowe and William Richard Lowe. To begin with, we wish to say that we understand the importance of this business to the local economy and their right to use the property in accordance with the current zoning regulations. That being said, it does not enhance the view shed for Mason Avenue. It creates noise, dust, and negatively impacts the business district and tourism. We strongly oppose acquisition of more land to expand the operation. We object strongly to the proposed text changes to GBIH1 on its own merit and their impact on other parcels. We strongly oppose the rezoning request because of its impact on surrounding areas. We are also strongly opposed to any action that would allow buildings to exceed 40 feet. Thank you for your consideration of our opinion in this matter. Regards, Karen Reed Lowe and William Richard Lowe. Dan Coffey. We are full-time Cape Charles residents, taxpayers, and registered voters. We have kept silent over recent changes at the concrete plant, realizing the long history of the concrete plant that offers much-needed jobs. We are pleased by the apparent cooperation between the town and concrete plant to reduce noise and dirt from the operation. However, the current rezoning proposal has caused us to realize that now is the appropriate time for us to voice our concern over the proposed rezoning, as it may further destroy the delicate balance between industry and the scenic beauty of this town, one of our greatest and fragile resources. We ask the Town Council and Planning Commission take the time and due diligence to study the effects the proposed zoning changes may have on Mason Avenue viewshed, the town harbor, the parcel designated Wetlands Harbor, the treescape, property values, the Bay Creek development, and the tourism industry. Of utmost concern is the request for an exemption of property zone light industrial to allow 75-foot tall buildings for the purpose of assembly and storage. We wish Coastal Concrete success, but also desire the continued success of Cape Charles. There's a delicate balance that is too important to the future of both Cape Charles and Coastal Concrete. Please take the time and resources to ensure that both Cape Charles and Coastal Concrete can work together for all. Thank you, Dan and Macy Coffey, 615 Strawberry Street. Jim Granger. I'm writing this to voice my opposition to the proposed amendments to the Cape Charles zoning ordinance, section 3.14, general business light industrial H1, and the application for zoning map amendment, rezoning 1201 Bayshore Road, tax map number 9890-A-1A1 for Harbor District to general business light industrial H1. I recognize the industrial nature of the south side of Cape Charles Harbor. However, 1201 Bayshore Road is much closer to the Yacht Center and Hook at Harvey. Marinas and restaurants are, in my opinion, a better use for that parcel. Also, allowing buildings up to 75 feet high would have a major negative impact on the view shed and appearance of the harbor. For those reasons, I oppose the proposed zoning ordinance amendments and the proposed rezoning of 1201 Bayshore Road. Sincerely, Jim Granger, 524 Jefferson Avenue. This is Margaret Gorse. I hope I'm saying her name right. Gorsky. Dear Planning Commission members, Town Council, Mayor, and Town Manager, I ask that you defer a decision on the above requested changes at this time. Coastal Precast Systems and Southport Investors LLC wrote the changes to the wording and zoning for their mutual benefit. While not opposed to business advancement or a land purchase, I am opposed to this being approved without additional consideration. Our wetlands, residents of the Hollies and New Quarter, future residents of lots abutting this parcel, our town, all would be affected by these changes. Structures would be permitted to nearly double in height. Sirens, audible devices, and outside manufacturing, assembly, and storage would be permitted. The parcel in question for sale is designated wetlands and zoned harbor. This would change. The clear cut by Coastal Precast has already impacted the greensward near Waco, and this effect would also increase. Due diligence requires that decisions on rezoning and changes to the text be deferred until fully examined by our extant cogent boards. Cape Charles Tree Advisory Board and the Wetlands Board need to review this proposal in consideration of current ordinances such as the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance, Wetlands Ordinance, and the Tree Conservation and Preservation Ordinance. The joint meeting of Council and Planning Commission, followed by a meeting of Town Council next week, is a clear effort to expeditiously decide this request. From 2008 to 2021, only 5 zoning changes have occurred. I believe this underscores that we have time for due diligence before approving these changes. Please conclude today's meeting with an approval to defer a decision for the text and zoning changes until due diligence of cogent boards has occurred. Sincerely, the Gorski family. This is from the Cape Charles Tree Advisory Board. Cape Charles Tree Advisory Board is concerned about the proposed zoning and text changes to accommodate the sale of harbor area property to coastal precast systems. There are many legal, aesthetic, economic, and environmental aspects to consider in granting approval for these changes. However, the focus of this letter is primarily on the environmental impact to this property and to the town of Cape Charles. This proposal would rezone a current heavily forested area with a section of wetland to light industrial. It would change the wording to allow indoor and outdoor assembly and storage and increase the size of the structures of this property to allow buildings up to 75 feet tall, the equivalent of a 5-story building. Additionally, any wording on landscaping screening or environmental protection is at best vague. With this, if the changes are approved, there's a high risk that the new owner would plan to treat this property as they have done the parcel of land recently purchased. The recently purchased land directly to the north of the Cape Charles Nature Preserve once offered a pristine approach through a native maritime forest, which led to a lovely view of the Chesapeake Bay. It not only had value for its peacefulness and beauty, but it also offered shade to visitors seeking a cool respite during the hot summer months. This is no longer the case, since all the trees were cut down, leaving the land bare and destroying a high value of asset for Cape Charles residents and visitors. In evaluating the proposed zoning and text changes, TAB asked that the town to seriously consider the quality of life and environmental value that would sustain through protecting the forested wetland area. The existing flora fauna residing on these properties provide a richness which would be forever lost if the changes were approved as written. In weighing the pros and cons, the town of Cape Charles would be advised to acknowledge the value the existing trees provide to our town, to the Chesapeake Bay, and to the region as a whole. The reduction of air pollution, a serious health threat that causes asthma, respiratory, and heart disease and cancer, is one of the most valuable ways the trees benefit the community. This is done by removing harmful gases that contribute to smog, acid rain, and the greenhouse effect, a proven contributor to climate change. Trees sequester carbon dioxide in their roots, trunks, stems, and leaves, with 1 acre of forest able to absorb 6 tons of carbon dioxide per year, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Just think of all the CO2 absorbed.
You get time too.
Carrie McKinney. It says, as a full-time resident of Cape Charles, Gary and I strongly oppose the expansion of the concrete facility. We are hopeful Town Council and the Planning Commission will also strongly oppose any expansion for coastal concrete by rezoning this property to allow large-scale industrial use. We already experience a huge amount of dust and noise on certain days from the facility. The dust has an unhealthy impact on the community and adversely affects our homes. It is my understanding the parcel in question for sale is at present zone harbor, and a portion is designated wetlands. Therefore, should not the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Board and possibly other state entities be consulted prior to approval? Why is this being pushed through so quickly? At the very least, all residents and business owners should be given notice of these changes and proposals and given time to respond, especially since the repercussions of approval would impact property values, the viewshed from Mason, and the wetlands. We are asking you, as our town council and planning commission, to not make this worse. Please keep Cape Charles as magical as it is now. Thank you for your consideration. Gary and Sheila McKinney, 14 Bay Avenue. Luke Saunders. To whom it may concern, my wife and I are relatively new to town. We decided to purchase in Cape Charles because it felt refreshingly removed from corporate commotion and the unchecked encroachment of inconsiderate industrial and commercial development. That sentiment has changed as coastal precast systems has continued to ramp up operations. It's been unfortunate to see CPS negatively impact much of the feel of the harbor and to some degree Mason Avenue. It's noisy, it's an eyesore, and it benefits very few in the town of Cape Charles. I would like for us to strongly consider taking more time to evaluate the holistic impact that we would be enabling by allowing CPS to rezone and develop on more natural land along the harbor. I would also urge us to consider what other governing bodies or environmental agencies we should feel ethically obligated to partner with in making this decision. Thanks for your consideration. Luke Saunders, 516 Madison. Robert D. Brown. Good evening. I, Robert Brown, and my wife, Donna Brown, are property owners and residents of Bay Creek. We would recommend against rezoning the property adjacent to the resort as requested by the concrete plant. The area and adjacent property is part of the nature preservation area and is adjacent to housing Bay Creek. Changes in the zoning of this area and commercial development would be detrimental to the environment and to the quality of life experience there. Please consider the impact this would have on the environment, natural habitat, and socially in the area. Deny a change in the zoning in this area. Sincerely, Robert Brown. Mary Barrow, Monroe Avenue. Dear Planning Commission members, Town Council, Mayor, and Town Manager, as a homeowner in the Historic District of Cape Charles, I'm writing to request that any decision regarding the text of the General Business Light Industry H1 zoning district and rezoning parcel 981A1 from Harbor to General Business Light Industrial H1 be deferred until consideration can be given and summaries submitted from the various boards and commissions available to Cape Charles as objective resources from projections regarding the consequences of this decisions. The entities would include but are not limited to the Wetlands and Coastal Dune Commission, the Harbor District Review Board, the Tree Advisory Board, the Historic District Review Board, any Chesapeake Bay Environmental Study Committees, any real estate associations, Main Street. While I believe that Coastal Cement has every right to ask for changes suggested, I also believe that such changes may have unforeseen potential detrimental consequences to the town of Cape Charles. I appreciate your consideration. Sincerely, Mary Barrow, Monroe Avenue. Lori Blewett, hope I pronounced the name right. Does our community want more industry right on the bay, more noise and dust? Once it's done, can it be undone? Why is this such a rush job? It appears to be a recent request within the last 60 days. I think we should step back and not be pressured into making the decision without studying and considering all impacts this change could have on our environment in town. Who does this benefit? Has the EPA and the Natural Conservancy been notified at this potential change and the impact it may have on the Chesapeake Bay? Is it against the law to make this type of decision without having notified the entities? The Chesapeake Bay lost 90% of its submerged and 50% of its coastal marshes per the EPA. What will be the impact on the nearby wetlands from the development of this parcel? Isn't it in the community's best interest to preserve any wetlands in and around Cape Charles? Do we want to contribute to this loss? We have a tree conservation and preservation ordinance and a tree advisory board. We are also bound by the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance. To date, it appears that none of those boards or ordinance have been consulted. I did not see any minutes to this respect. Noted from the joint meeting, Planning Commission, Town Council, Tuesday, July 13th at 6 p.m. Number 6, the purpose of joint meeting of the Planning Commission and the Town Council is to gain the approval of the Planning Commission on July 13th and then allow the Town Council to approve it on July 22nd. This is too quick to fully understand the ramifications of the proposed amendment changes and the rezoning. I've heard recently that the town is trying to promote tourism in Cape Charles. In fact, we appear to be all about it if you own a rental home, restaurant, or retail store. Eroding our nature is not conducive to this end, if that is where we are heading. Do we want to see, and I quote from the joint meeting, Planning Commission Town Council, Tuesday, July 13th, potential outdoor pilings of raw and waste materials and newly assembled products awaiting transport and/or delivery, warehousing, and newly constructed facilities at 75 foot tall. When Coastal Precast purchased this facility, I would think they knew what they were getting and that it would be sufficient for their needs. Or were they hedging their bets and given the wink-wink on expanding and expecting the town to allow them to do just that without question? We want to see new job opportunities, but not at the expense of our natural environment. From what we've heard, Town Council has already rubber... John D. and Jean B. Evans. Dear ladies and gentlemen, this letter is from John and Jean Evans, owners since 2004 of the house and property located at 207 Monroe Avenue in Cape Charles. We are writing in reference to the joint meeting of the Planning Commission and Town Council to be held on June 13, 2021. First of all, thank you for providing homeowners and residents with the opportunity to express our thoughts and opinions on the proposed changes to the zoning code, which would allow for expansion of the cement factory. In short, we are strongly opposed to requested change in zoning and to any expansion of the factory so close to the town center and recreational areas adjacent to the town harbor, including the beach and the fish pier. Please do not rush to a decision in this matter that is so critical to the town and its future. This matter is far too important to be decided without proper studies and recommendations by experts in land use management, environmental studies, conservation, land and animal species. When we read the proposed plans, the first thought that came to our minds was a quote from Thoreau: "Thank God they cannot cut down the clouds." We want to see people on the lower eastern shore being given the opportunity for employment that the factory provides. At the same time, we want to see the beauty of the land and green spaces surrounding the harbor are preserved and protected, and also that the air quality standards are met and the air is safe to breathe. We are greatly concerned that the proposed growth of the cement factory will increase the amount of dust we are breathing and also increase the amount of level of noise pollution that already exists with the present size of the factory. Cape Charles has a charm that deserves protection, and we do not believe that the expanding of the size of the cement factory is in the best interest of the residents or visitors. Tourists and new home buyers coming here in recent years made a significant impact on the local economy, and we believe many will no longer want to return here if dust, noise, air quality, and unsightly machinery increase in size and volume. We urge the Planning Commission and the Town Council to adopt an environmentally sound approach and vote to deny or at least delay the rezoning request for the property adjacent to Fuji Waco Lab at the nearby conservation area, pending in-depth studies of the long-range implications of such a critical decision. We thank you in advance for your consideration of our concerns and urge you to vote for preservation and protection. With climate change increasing around the world, we all need to do what we can to counter global warming in our own backyard and do our best to protect the environment and manage precious resources. Eric S. Fulati, 201 Monroe Avenue. Okay. I understand you will discuss some serious amendments to Cape Charles zoning. I am in favor of business development in the municipality of Cape Charles if it benefits the people living here full-time. Regarding the property currently discussed, I would like to know how it will generate substantial revenues to the town, protect the environment. I already noticed serious deforestation, improve the quality of life of the citizens. If Cape Charles is in an historic town with a beach, then the view, the noise, and the dust generated by the existing concrete plant does not fit the description of who we are and want to remain. Cape Charles is experiencing a major population change, mostly due to the property values. Do not jeopardize the opportunity to attract higher income patrons to the existing retailers by transforming Cape Charles into an industrial park. Your administration has been weak to raise revenues for the town outside increasing taxes. Everything is free for the visitors: parking, pier, beach, and concerts. Maybe it is time to think out of the box. Instead of granting an out of control extension of the concrete plant, maybe one could focus on attracting other businesses more related to who lives and visits Cape Charles. Don't you feel there is need for entertainment like a good-sized mini golf and an indoor shooting range, for example? These businesses will buy or lease the land necessary for the activities. I count on you to do the right thing. Do not change the character of Cape Charles. The concrete plant is big enough, and bigger will not be better for all of us. Sincerely, Eric Fulate. Lothar and Cornelia Hasselberger, hope I'm saying their names right, 208 Harbor Avenue. It is with great concern that we homeowners in Cape Charles since 2007 see both the haste and the magnitude of what is under consideration at today's meeting. We would like to voice our views as we cannot attend the meeting in person. In one hastily scheduled decision, major zoning changes are requested that directly or indirectly will impact indefinitely those who work, live, or vacation in Cape Charles. All this for a text change in current zoning that allows the one requesting person to receive a higher sales value for property owner. The consequences will be permanent and irreversible, and we believe to the detriment of our community. The wording in the community call leaves no doubt about it. The domino effect on developers and corporations intending to bring light industry to Cape Charles. The massively intensified use of current lots for the monoculture of one heavy industry, intending to nearly double the existing factory building height to 75 feet. The lasting side effect on the view sheds of Cape Charles, the adjacent nature preserve, parcel 90A 4C, the existing Waco Fuji Lab, the adjacent private properties. We urge the Planning Commission, the Town Council, to resist both the temptation and the pressure of the proposed changes. Respectfully, Lothar and Cornelia Hasselberger. That's all I have.
Thank you. So that concludes the public comments. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to close to the town council. So moved. Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Thank you all.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, before we lose everyone in the audience, there is a public hearing that is coming up in which we will hear from the applicants, both from Southport Investors and from Coastal Precast. So you may wish to stick around to hear that information that's going to be supplied from the applicants.
Can we do that sooner than later?
It's
Because,
coming up next.
okay, because there's a lot of just misinformation.
So if you would like to leave, you can, but we wanted to make you aware that you're going to hear some more information on this matter tonight.
Bill, can we get a 5-minute break with some air?
Yes, we're going to get a take a 5-minute break.
5 minutes. Alarm.
Oh, I thought you did.
Yeah.
You did. You did. You didn't adjourn?
They closed public comment.
Does anyone need more water?
Yes, please.
Okay, we're going to resume. The next item on the agenda is consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We have no unfinished business, new business. Before we get into this, I'm going to have the zoning administrator say some words here and introduce the applicant.
Sure. Again, this is just clarification because I know zoning and how we do zoning changes in Virginia may not be familiar to everyone. So we wanted to make you aware, any zoning text changes to the ordinance cannot come from an individual. The individual can propose them to the community through the town council or the planning commission, but they have to be the ones to decide if that should really advance out to a public hearing process for consideration by the community as a whole. And the reason for that is because more than one parcel may hold that zoning designation. So an individual property owner cannot be in charge of proposing changes that may affect other properties not under their control, but that is something the community at large through the town council can do. And the process here is it has to go to the planning commission to hold the public hearing first. They have 100 days from the first date this matter was referred to them from town council to develop and formulate a recommendation. So just so you're aware, if they should take the entire 100 days, that would put us to September 23rd of 2021 to develop a recommendation that we advance to the town council. If we fail to develop a recommendation, it is deemed approved by the planning commission and it moves on to the town council. The town council is the only body that can adopt or deny any zoning text changes as well as any zoning map changes. Zoning map changes can come from an individual property owner, which has been the case here this evening for the zoning map change. So I just wanted to make everyone aware of the two different processes that are involved and how they flow through our system at this point in time. So for our public hearing process, we do provide an opportunity for the applicant to come forward to make a presentation. They can talk about any of the comments that were offered. They may wish to offer some clarifying information that may help edify for everyone what they are seeking to do, and that is for both Southport investors who are the property owners as well as the co-applicant of coastal precast concrete, excuse me. I'm overheating over here. Yeah. Thank you. So with that said, Mr. Chairman, if we can ask the applicants to step forward.
Katie, can I ask one clarification about the 100 days? So
Yes.
there's an item on here, make recommendations to town council. That won't happen until September. Is that what I hear you
It's
saying?
up to you. You can make them as early as this evening. The latest you can
Yeah.
make a recommendation is through September 23rd. If you fail to take any decision,
Okay.
it is deemed that we recommend and support, and that's how it moves over to the town council.
Okay.
If you could just introduce yourselves to everybody.
My name is Air Baldwin. I'm part of Southport Investors. This is Dan Brown, who is our Chief Financial Officer of all of our holding companies. This is Brandon, I don't know what. Mallory. He's part of the Russians. The Russians are Cape Charles Concrete Products, CCCP. So I think we're kind of blown away that everybody's in here tonight. And, but it's really kind of a great opportunity. So I'm going to go over several items, and then the real technical stuff, I'm going to let these two answer, and Brandon, you all should ask questions to. But first things first, I'm going to ask Katie to roll the map up, just so we can just see the map, and then we're going to give you some facts and some direction. So if we could roll the map up here.
You want to see this map?
That's great. And if you see
something that's orange colored over here on the east end, that's actually that's not correct. It's actually a bit bigger. It's about 400 feet on each end. It's 15 acres. 15 acres. So there is a drawing on a subdivision that's wider, but for some reason you all don't have it. But we'll make that available. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that that's 15 acres. So if there was a bigger building or any building, there's a setback, which nobody quite understands. The second thing is the green area, which is the area that we want to rezone. In 1990s, 1993, 94, after Bill Clinton was elected President of the United States, he put together the most green effort there ever was for economic development and industrial parks. Cape Charles Sustainable Technology Industrial Park was one of the first one of those in the country, in the United States. It had the hardest, most deepest environmental impact study done on anything on the Chesapeake Bay. That's a recorded document. About 10 minutes ago, I saw it on my Safari on this phone. It's still there. So the environmental studies are older than most of us have ever been in this town. And all the wetlands have been delineated. So is the trees. I'm going to get you to look at this piece right here. All this part that our family bought was light industrial. And at the minute we bought it, the town changed some of it to Harbor District zoning. Part of the Harbor District zoning included this. Mrs. Alexander came up here earlier this evening to talk about her concern. And the tragedy about that comment was, in August of 2019, her firm, DCR, bought 22 acres from us. Within days, asked Dan if they could buy the rest of it. We never heard from them, and the Russians put a contract on it. Well, why are you in here complaining tonight when you asked if you could buy it? We never heard from you. So that's a little awkward. When the zoning was changed from light industrial to Harbor District, we had a chance not long ago to sell 22 of those acres to a housing company. We didn't do it. Sold it to DCR. Because when we first bought this property, we said we weren't into housing. We had a chance, or had a chance, if we could rezone the 62 acres and sell that into housing. It's the greatest housing market in the history of the Eastern Shore of Virginia. I know. But we've made a commitment to Bay Creek. We helped coastal preserve communities get here. So I'm not going to keep shooting myself in the foot. When I hear people worry about 75-foot buildings, if this was zoned to light industrial like it was started, you can't put a 75-foot building on that piece of property because it doesn't meet the setbacks.
Right.
It's impossible. So if somebody says it's going to ruin a view shed from the town, they're lying. It doesn't meet the setbacks. It doesn't happen. You've got wetlands in here, you've got a street here, and a street here. It won't work. So it's like a non-starter, which is kind of silly. So the only place you could build a 75-foot tall building would be here. And if this is 400 feet and you add another 125, it puts you here. If you have to set back off of Bay Creek, then it puts you here. And the town would never see that. But nobody ever told anybody that. Everybody made assumptions. But here's the real tragedy. We didn't ask for permission to build a 75-foot building. We've asked for permission to ask for permission. And that's it. That's it. We didn't say, hey, we're going to build a 75-foot building. We're begging you to say, hey, can we come and ask you for a 75-foot building? And even that's a conditional use permit.
Right.
So let's talk about facts. Here's an interesting fact. See that piece of property right there? I've got a permit to build a 75-foot building. I got a conditional use permit right now. I haven't built it. I've had it since 2016. Yeah.
I couldn't see it. Where is that?
Right here, right opposite the town harbor. I have a permit to do that. We've done it. But that's what it takes. It takes more than 45 feet to do an efficient motel if you were going to build for a motel. Again, we haven't asked for a permit to build one. We've only asked for permission to ask to build one. You can't build one in this harbor district zoning. If one of you said, I want to buy that property for harbor district zoning, and you were going to be a traditional American and get financing, you can't get it. Because you can't finance a building in harbor district zoning. Because the zoning is so erroneous. I've listened to people say like, oh, you're hurry, you want to rush and change the zoning. I've been asking for the zoning to be changed since 2008. I haven't rushed a damn thing. In 2016, some of the people sitting on this board heard me say, Harbor District's a non-starter. It doesn't work. It financially doesn't work. I've said it to town council members, and I've said it to people in the planning commission. It doesn't work. So if somebody wants to complain about the environment, they better go back and look and see what the studies have been done, and they're pretty intense.
Well, that was prior to the concrete, right?
Yeah. Prior to what?
Was that prior to the concrete factory being put into place?
Well, you know,
Yeah.
the environment,
Were those studies done prior to the effect of the concrete?
yes, they were done, yes.
Prior. So they have them come back and do it now, and have them estimate what double it might look like.
Madam, I'm not here to fight you. They gotta have to have it
I know
certified.
you were yelling.
You gotta have it certified. So listen, look, they gotta have it certified. So to sit there and say that somebody can build something, they've gotta have that certified.
So you're saying, let's just kick this down the road and meanwhile let me sell my property.
If I may, this actually is not a debate at this point. This really is a presentation from the developer, so really no shout outs from the public. We will clarify that point. The concrete plan, I believe, was in the early 60s?
Yeah.
Thank you. 60. No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Not yell at us.
I will make sure that he,
I'm sorry.
that he pulls down his tone.
I'm pretty passionate about it.
So-
I built a yacht center, and Bay Creek and I are the only private people in Northampton County that have gone around and promoted Cape Charles throughout the country, whether it's in Florida or Newport. So
Mr. Baldwin, if I can interject for a second, I just want to clarify so everyone is clear. The concrete plan has been in existence since 1965. The industrial park that Mr. Baldwin referenced was put in by the county in the 1990s, and those are when the environmental studies were conducted on that property, and they are all publicly available, both online and through the county offices as well. So anyone can obtain that information. I do wish, Air, if you would start to talk to the Planning Commission and the Town Council, and make your presentation and pitch.
Fine. So-
and I think we are anxious to also hear from the concrete company about their proposal.
Absolutely, but when somebody says you can build a building and you can't,
I
or they
understand.
say don't change the zoning,
And no cursing, please. No cursing.
I haven't done that yet.
Yeah, you did.
But my point is that nobody's come out here and said, hey, look, they didn't ask for a right to build a building, they asked for permission to ask you, and that's the key.
Sure.
Yes. You know, it's a process.
So let's keep going through what you guys are proposing.
Okay, so Dan has some, do you want to speak to some of the details of what has been sent around that's not correct, and then let Brandon have it?
Commissioners, thanks for your time tonight. And
Speak to the microphone.
Get the mic.
thanks for your time tonight and enabling us to come up here and speak to you about this request. My name's Dan Brown. I'm the CFO of Southport Investors, and I'd like to answer any questions you may have regarding the property and the history of the property. This is Brandon Mowry. He's with Coastal Precast. He'd be happy to answer any questions you have with regard to the future use. A couple issues to just elaborate on as we've been listening to the folks in the field as well as air. The part in pink up there is a residual piece of property that is not part of the contract that we currently have in service. If we're referencing the proposed conditional use permit for the 75-foot building, that property is 420 feet wide east to west. The current existing offset, or the buffer on that, is 200 feet. Putting in place or in service the request for the conditional use permit would add another 125 feet to that. So we're talking about from the residential district there at the new quarter, from that boundary line, you're talking about 325 feet. That leaves you about 100 feet. If you consider the offset from the west boundary, you can't put a building in there under those parameters. Once you get over to that western boundary, now we're talking about another 200 feet plus another 125. So that puts the opportunity for a structure under the conditional use permit option, if it was so granted, in the middle of that property. So as Aaron mentioned, there's nothing that potentially could be built to that height, even if you guys were to approve it, on the parcel 90-8-1A1. And there's only a concentrated portion of the large block where a structure could be built if you so choose to approve it. Also worth mentioning is the parcel that we're referencing, M2, which is directly across the street from the shanty, correct? Right there where you have the stylus. That is a 18-acre parcel, and we approached you folks relatively recently. That was a Harbor District parcel, and we didn't request a change to light industrial. We requested a change to M2. So that was a jump. We jumped 2 designations deeper into industrial, and we were granted that. We were also granted the right to build a 78-foot building on that parcel. Today's request regarding the smaller piece, we are, from our perspective, the precedent that's been set recently with regard to the recent change, we feel that it's a relatively reasonable request. Second, the items that are up for consideration, and out of respect for all the folks that have come up here voicing their concerns, we're really only identifying a certain number of edits to the text. And we've gone through this process, a process that is statutory. We've done everything that we've been asked to do. We've worked with the town, with the zoning administrator, the town manager, and to boil this down to just a number of items, allowing for assembly and storage of products, allowing for perhaps a 75-foot structure if it were approved at the town level, and the other minor changes with regard to auditory issues. Those are the 3 things that we're here for tonight. I'd like to turn it over to Brandon. If you have any questions for us with regard to the intended use, Brandon can more accurately depict what the intentions are for the user.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Brandon Mowry. I'm with Coastal Precast Systems. I'm not a Russian. Yeah, the beard maybe. But I guess I'm more here to answer any questions you guys have, concerns. As of now, we don't have this crazy plan to put up a paper mill or anything like that, or a concrete batch plant. We're merely needing it for lay-down storage if we need that, with the ultimate hopes of getting renewable energy, as Air was alluding to, which I don't know if everybody's seen one of these windmills, but they're massive and they take up a lot of room, and you need a pretty tall building to build all that. There's not a lot of facilities on the East Coast that can handle something like this, and I just think Cape Charles will be missing a pretty big opportunity where we could be a renewable windmill destination on the East Coast. It really would be that. I hear some grumblings, but you guys haven't done the research I've done. So with that, I'll leave it open to you guys if you have any questions.
Let's make sure everybody understands that. This is not a site for windmills to be assembled.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we'll just merely be putting up the indoor facility for them to be putting the pieces together. We want to focus on the water line and barging everything out. So the idea that we would put a batch plant up over here makes no sense. We're going the wrong way. We're focused on waterfront delivery.
Can I take it one more step? So if you were going to have lay down from a 50-foot section to go to a 400-foot section.
Correct, yeah.
Of blade, and you're in here, the whole goal is just to be able to move it through here and to the well pit, which is your waterfront.
Correct.
And not have carbon fiber be hurt or challenged by what's going on in the concrete yard.
Correct, yeah.
And that's all that is.
Yeah,
I mean,
and that's if we even get one of these contractors. I mean, we're talking to one outfit right now, and we're still on a list of maybe 10 potential sites. So this isn't even a sure thing. That's why we haven't even looked into the wetlands that everybody's raising Cain about. We'll obviously mitigate that the correct way. We've done it multiple times. We have 3 sites, 1 in North Carolina, 2 in Virginia. We've done it plenty of times. We work with, actually, Mr. Bill Ballard was out at our site today and got to meet one of the representatives we have with MSA, who helps us mitigate all of these issues and help us with DEQ.
And I think, just again, for clarity's sake, I forgot at the very beginning, for a conditional use permit, again, for the public to know the process, a conditional use permit application, when it comes in, has to submit with it a plan of development for the entire parcel. With that comes all the environmental considerations, the landscaping, the lighting, the parking, the number of employees, all the uses that will be proposed upon there. All the buffer requirements have to be addressed as part of that, the wetlands, if there are any Chesapeake Bay issues, stormwater, E&S. It then goes to public hearing, advertised public hearing, just like this process, to the Planning Commission first. They have the ability to schedule a joint public hearing with Town Council. We do that from time to time to keep our costs low in terms of advertising, because it is an expensive proposition for us, and it helps us to hear all the comments at once from the public at large, instead of making you come to repetitive meetings to voice those same comments to 2 different bodies. So it would go to the Planning Commission for their recommendation on any conditional use permit, and then once they develop the recommendation, it moves over to the Town Council for them to conduct their hearings and make a decision. They're, again, the only body who can make a determination to issue, not issue, or issue with conditions any conditional use permit. Thank you.
M2, that M2 property has a conditional use permit?
Yes, the town has issued a conditional use permit.
I don't remember them going through all that to get it.
They would have gone through the public hearing process. That
Well,
was before my time.
Certainly, but I don't remember them having to do all that planning stuff, and I'm sorry, Katie, but you've gone through a lot of you, so you may not be here as long when they come.
But I'm really good, I think.
You are great. You are great.
Yes.
Sorry.
I have a question. It wasn't too many years ago where we had a study of wind in the town as a source of renewable energy, and the conclusion was that there was not a sufficient velocity to support wind in this town. You know, maybe some homes on a smaller scale. There have been two times at the Stiff Park. Once was in the late 90s, was a company called Prevento. And there were people from the town and the county that went to Germany. And it's never made sense to put up a wind tower. We've been down, they even permitted to put up the wind towers. It just didn't make sense. And then about 8 years later, there was another study, and again, it didn't yield the amount of wind as many of the months that they needed, meaning that the summer months were really not. But you were talking about having a windmill to power the work you're going to be doing on the property?
No, Mr. Strub, it would be for offshore wind, 27 miles offshore. Yes, sir.
That's something different, okay.
Yeah, everything is offshore wind. I mean, it's.
It'd all be laying down.
That was my point, okay,
Right.
thank you, okay.
Then we'd be looking for 1,400 foot pipe
permission. We thought we'd get that tonight.
Questions?
Yeah, I had, with regards to the properties that you're looking to buy, is the green property, or does it include the 90A, 1A property as well?
It's hard for me to see that.
So,
It does include both of those.
so this
Okay,
is the
'cause-
one proposed for the rezoning, and I think you have, the intention to have 90-A-1A
Yeah.
under purchase as well. I just was not privy to your sales contract, so I couldn't confirm that.
Yeah.
Do you have plans laid out conceptually even as to what you would do with those properties?
As of now, no.
When would you have that?
I guess we'd have to see if we got a contract with a alternative wind source company. Other than that, I mean, our primary, if we couldn't use it for that and we absolutely needed lay-down storage for precast concrete, we would move over into that yard for lay-down storage.
How are we
Okay.
approaching this? Are we going to first talk about the changing the zoning amendment or the zoning text?
Well,
Yes.
Sure, and I think, yes, we need to actually finish if we have additional questions for the applicant.
Well, I think I have questions that may come up as we talk about specific
Sure,
sections.
sure. So yes, the first item that is up for your discussion is relative to the zoning text amendment first. Yes.
I do have a question that may come into that. So you've asked for the change to include storage and assembly of products. There's a further point down in the additional development requirements, F6, that talks or prohibits the outside storage of parts. So if we give you storage of products, if the product is a part of something else, do we need to then look at F6 and potentially make a change to that to solve your issues?
Can I speak to it? So when STIP was first started, and we've asked since we bought this to change the zoning. It's never been done. So we've been doing it pieces of time. When STIP was started, everybody's worried that all these people would become a warehouse district. Well, we'd be lucky if we could get a warehouse district, but, so they left any warehousing out of the initial documents. And I was on IDA back then, and we tried to change it, we were about to change it. So it was like, we don't want any storage. So I think you gotta say, you know what, if you're selling windmill blades and you don't want a huge building, yeah, you can lay one down on the ground. Does that help? And, because I know that a windmill column, you're not gonna put that in a building.
Right.
It's not gonna happen. So. Yeah, so I think you let them
So you
store
wanna-
it outside, like a boat, or you store a boat outside.
So it would be potentially a part of something. So we may need to look at another amendment, if I'm reading that correctly.
Or storage.
Right.
Okay, storage, is that a fair thing to say, Kate?
Storage?
Is storage, can you store inside or outside? No. Heavy things that people can't run away with, but usually go outside.
So I'm confused again. You said you didn't know what the land was gonna be used for, but in your letter, you said that you couldn't buy the land unless these changes were made to the zoning amendment for something you don't know what to do with it.
Well, because, let's be real about it. You go look at that zoning, because I bet on it. I bought it. You tell me what I can do on it. And anything that's produced on the Eastern Shore.
Oh, this is your land now,
Yeah.
not what you wanna sell to them.
Right, but even when I sell him, we have to come to you for a special permit for everything. Do you know that
You don't have to, to sell it to him, you have to get approval?
No, I have to get approval for him to do something on it. The yacht center, I had to get a special permit
That's the
so
yacht
they
center,
could,
yeah.
so they could work on engines. That's how erroneous the
Yeah.
zoning was at STIP.
They
So-
doesn't, okay.
So in
To,
other
to
words,
answer your question, we couldn't even do outside storage, how it reads right now, for light industrial.
Okay.
The way you marked it up, it says, "No outside storage of parts, fossil fuels, or petroleum shall be permitted within the GBI H1 district." That's from coastal precast.
We struck out materials, correct?
But, so,
And that would be what we'd be storing, be materials.
Right, so you have outdoor storage.
Yes, if this holds up.
okay. Does that answer your question?
However,
Now,
that's.
it doesn't answer your question for the windmill part. You are partially right on that. I guess we have to define what a part of a windmill is.
And a product
Or a
versus a
material of a windmill, yes.
I mean, you guys should know, there's 3 different industrial zoning designations in this town.
Levels, yeah.
It's crazy.
It's levels, yep.
Yeah.
In Mr. Baldwin's letter to John Hosey of May 11th, the 4th paragraph, he wrote, "We would also like some clarification from the town with regard to additional development requirements found in the district regulations. Our legal research suggests these requirements are only enforceable to the extent they do not compromise permitted uses. Would you please provide a formal written response which describes the relationship of additional development requirements and permitted uses?" Has that been done?
I don't know, because that was not addressed to me. That would be.
Okay, so that would be interesting, because a lot of the stuff that people are most interested in is under additional development requirements.
So, but it goes back, go ahead.
Town manager.
So let me address that point. Yes, this was confusing because section F is contradictory to a lot of things, both in this portion of the zoning ordinance and in heavy industrial. So I've asked our attorney to evaluate that. What does that conflict mean? And the opinion I got from the attorney, verbally from the attorney, was that section F does not apply to permitted uses. So in this particular example, the requested change in permitted uses to allow assembly and storage would preempt anything in section F. Okay? So that is the ruling I got from the attorney. Again, it was a verbal discussion with him. I don't have anything in writing, so no, I did not reply back in writing.
Wow.
It's a partial answer.
So all the things that the people have been wanting to see, which are things like the sound and the dust and all that noise, the sound of vehicles, none of that applies to anything that they want to do. Because even a conditional use is not under additional development requirements, right?
Yes, it is.
Why is that?
Permitted uses are uses by right.
Okay.
So when I go through that list, and I'm pulling them up here on the screen for anybody to look at, it's under section B. Permitted uses include things like adult and child daycare center. Moving down the list, a business service establishment, fire, police, rescue stations. Those are all, if you define it, that's what you come in, you submit an application, by right, you can do that use.
Okay,
There are
but
no
by
other
right.
requirements that we enforce upon it of saying, well, we're gonna limit your hours of operation. We're gonna require you have sirens that can only go off on the sunny days, whatever it may be. That's not a by right use, that's not a permitted use. Permitted use is, it's allowed by right.
Okay, so two things.
So in terms of the proposal that would be coming forward, because again, if this works as the coastal precast company is hoping, associated with wind tower development, they would need a structure or building greater than the height that was originally in this ordinance. That would require a conditional use permit. In a conditional use permit, conditions can be placed upon those sorts of applications, which include all of the items listed under additional requirements.
Okay, so two things. One, permitted uses, number 14. Manufacture, process. Am I done?
This is my real life.
Okay, I know I talked a lot. Manufacture, processing, fabrication, assembly, and/or storage of products, blah, 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 blah. That entire section is also in M2. right?
Yes.
Except in M2, it doesn't have storage. The word storage is not there anymore.
Correct.
So, anything that we see in M2, we could see on any of this property that's zone GBH.
Potentially, I've not pursued the permitted by right uses allowed in the M2 district. No, I have not looked at that. So again, you'd go to that zoning district and look at those uses, and those could be what's allowed and permitted by right in the M2 district.
That's a permitted use, though. It says it
Yeah.
right there.
It is.
Right, and I'm not
So-
disputing that. If it is, it is. I think the caveat that we're hearing is there may be some additional height requirements being sought from the concrete company for any of their proposals that they are seeking that are associated with the wind tower component.
The only conditional use you have here is something tall.
That's right.
That's the only conditional use. Everything else is permitted by right.
Yes.
When you look at the M2 zoning, which I think is more heavy industrial and this is
Yes.
light industrial, when you look at M2, there are a lot more requirements on them and a lot more restrictions. And a lot of the things that are allowed here as permitted uses are conditional uses under that. So I'm kind of surprised that we're calling this light industrial. I'm not against this, is my problem.
And
I just want to see this be rewritten to what we want it to say, not to what we're going to try to make it say.
And I do want to stress here, that was not any of the permitted uses except for item number 14, where there was proposed edits made to number 14. All the rest, that's your existing ordinance today.
Exactly.
So that's not being proposed for change by this applicant at all. That's something this town has asked for and adopted, I don't know exactly when, more than a few years ago.
You know, I have to say, it's pretty obvious when you read these zoning texts that mostly things were not rewritten, they just have little things slapped onto them. And so I can see where this text is from the Sustainable Technologies parks. I don't see how it is what we're doing right now. I don't see how it applies. And what I'm saying is, this zoning as light industrial should be more restrictive than a heavy industrial zoning, and that is not the case.
Well, we want to make sure that we have our questions with the folks up here front, but before we start, we got to talk about all this zoning stuff.
Could I make a comment,
Yeah.
Commissioner D'Amico? I believe that in summary, the written verbiage in the letter was for a request for clarification regarding the F additional development requirements and how they pertain to the uses by right. I think that's what you asked, that's what we were asking for clarification, and that was the issue that's been raised with the town manager and town council, meaning the town's attorney.
Don't you think it's interesting that as a board, we did not hear that? That was not told to us?
Well, it's in the guidelines, it's in the ordinance. So, again, I was looking for.
You're asking for a clarification, we got a clarification. The
Well,
town
we don't have
manager
we don't have a
said
written
is it
clarification.
doesn't apply to permitted uses. In this zone, GBI, there's a lot of permitted uses. Therefore, if
Right.
our town attorney said that the additional development requirements don't apply to permitted uses, just about everything permitted in this zoning doesn't fall under these additional development requirements, which are the ones that everybody's complaining about tonight.
Correct. Correct.
Right?
Other questions?
So just want to make sure that one of the things I read was that for any outdoor storage, it is currently required that that material be screened through some sort of landscaping.
I believe that there's Katie can clarify, but there are landscaping requirements for screening for each of the zoning clarifications.
I asked that same question, as you all know, having gotten, thank you, Katie, for sending that to everybody. And she referenced because I didn't understand what Appendix A was, and I couldn't find it in the zoning ordinance. So she sent me this Appendix A, which is from Accomack Plantation PUD, which you know is Bay Creek. Well, this doesn't apply anywhere but in the PUD. Why would this apply in the table? It's not even in the zoning ordinance that I could find.
And Katie, wasn't it because it was, the Stibb Park was part of the original PUD? And that's when the original environmental things got put in.
The Accomack Plantation Planned Unit Development was adopted by this town. It is an appendix to the town zoning ordinance. I administer it every day as part of my job. So in that regard, I'm sorry it was not clear, and I agree with you. There are elements of our current zoning ordinance that could be better worded, better phrased, and clearer as to which references they are going for, that being one of them. I knew, because this property is adjacent to property that is zoned PUD zoning, I knew that's where I had to go look for the buffer requirements, the landscaping requirements to determine them. And they would have to be in compliance with that document. So it would be adjacent to PUD zoning. The Hollies, I think were mentioned, is one of the subdivisions that is adjacent to here. Any of those residentially zoned PUDs trigger the buffer requirements under the Accomack Plantation PUD.
Well, those are even less than what we require in the zoning ordinance.
They're very specific about the treescape, the type of shrubbery plants, the quantity, the size, the planting dimensions, and distance between. All of that would have to be adhered to in any proposal that the town might approve.
But we haven't really seen, I hate to bring up other properties, but all of us know the yacht property, the M2 zoning, that had lots and lots and lots of trees on it and now has almost none on it. What is to stop that from happening prior to anything else happening?
I can't talk about another piece of property, candidly. I can only deal with the property that's before us this evening for this public hearing, and that's really where I need to retain and contain our comments associated with that. Part of this is the responsibility of the town officials you employ to manage, enforce, oversee all of these ordinances. Have there been deficits in the past? Yes. Are there currently deficits right now? Yes, I think that's a fair statement. I think some additional staff is going to be needed to help ensure, monitor, and make sure in the long term that these properties are being managed appropriately according to the terms of the town's zoning ordinances, including the tree ordinance, including wetlands ordinances, including any clearing activity, because that deals with land disturbance. There's all sorts of things that we need help enforcing, and I can't say that we have a robust staff right now in the planning, zoning, and building department to oversee all of that. I think we are very much aware of some of the staffing challenges that we're having, including my position. And again, I am only your interim zoning administrator. So I think that is an issue that the town council is fully aware of, and I think they are working for a path of trying to address that.
Can I, question regarding, a lot of folks had concerns about noise, the backup warnings, those sorts of things. Is there any way to meet OSHA requirements with either a lower volume than you currently use or some other kind of device?
We've tried, you can only go to a certain level. We're at the lowest level.
Okay.
A lot of the beeps that you hear, I know people may not believe us, but anytime we get rental equipment out there, we can't adjust their horns. So that's, you know, through the roof versus what our machines are. You could also do white noise. Mr. Hosey showed us a couple of options for that we've been checking out. The problem is when you get out in the field, you can't really hear the white noise. The white noise, as dumb as it sounds, is white noise. And, you know, our number one priority is safety.
Sure.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
So, I mean, I wish we could have everything quiet, but it's not the reality with OSHA.
Katie, can I come back and just follow up with Diane here? Sure. In a bunch of our districts, we have permitted uses and we have non-permitted uses that require a conditional use permit that allows the planning commission and town council to look at. The changes right now that we have here will just say they have carte blanche to go and do what they need to do in those particular areas in conjunction with all the particular reviews that have to ensue, whether it's wetlands or trees or what have you. So right now, the way this is proposed is that hands off, once we approve, and we'll just have to see the outcome. And if trees go down to meet the requirements of 10% minimum coverage, that may turn out to be what is on all those particular properties that are deemed GBI H1.
But not a tree should come down until there's an approved plan.
And
And
it
the
will.
problem with the tree is if you cut it down, it's gone.
But the plan, again, you go according to what we have. The site plan will have to be delivered along with a whole bunch of stuff that gets reviewed.
Where's the site plan for the yacht center that shows which trees can stay and which can come down?
So again, I want to focus just on what's been
I know what you
advertised for
want to do,
public
but do you
hearing.
understand what these people are upset about? We're all sitting in
I-
town, we're looking across the water, and there's no trees. And we look at this land that they're talking about, we're saying, we don't want that land to be no trees. So we want to I want to work with these guys. I don't want to say no. I'm shocked at the number of people who've said no. I don't want to say no, but I don't want to say yes tonight. I want to sit down with Air. I want to sit down with you guys, and I want to say, okay, look, this is what we want. Can you work within our parameters? And you say we can do this, we can do this, we can't do that. Let's work together, but none of this, what you have here, because I have to remind you of something. When we change this zoning text, and you are thinking of it in your own terms, but somebody else could easily come in here and ask to be rezoned to this zoning, and then every one of these things that we just approved, because you're the nicest guys in the world, and we know you wouldn't screw us over, the next person could.
And again, I don't want to say, I want to clarify one of your statements, Diane. It's not that we just approved this. This is on the books today. All of these permitted uses are available today for any zoning district that is classified as GBI H1.
Right.
So I'm just making you aware, this is not something that they're asking for. This is all on the books today. They are only asking for the changes proposed in red in this document.
And, you know, to be clear, is it fair to say, Katie, that as long as their inventory is moving, they can do exactly what they wanted to do, except build a 75-foot building right now. And they're only asking you for permission to ask you to build a building.
Oh,
Is that correct? No, don't shake your head at me.
Okay.
If you're going to be the sheriff, then read the law.
Oh, don't say that to me.
Well, that's all we're asking is permission.
No, you're not.
All right, any further questions?
Yeah, I'll just ask, if the 75-foot maximum height was not included in this, what would that do for you, or do to you?
It'd be tough, it'd probably be tough to get around. I mean, we don't specialize if, say, the windmill was a possibility. We're only now talking to the guys. We just assumed to get cranes in order to get these components out of a warehouse, we would need at least a little bit of leeway there. It may not be 75 feet, it could be 65 feet. We wouldn't know until we get that opportunity and talk to these guys and find out exactly what they need, and then that would obviously be broached to you guys.
If you don't get that contract, are you going out of business?
I don't think that's a question we need to answer.
Okay. Well, I'm just thinking, is there other business that you could do besides this if we don't give you that 75 foot?
I'm not gonna answer.
Okay.
Well, is it necessary? I guess
Questions?
It sounds like though that some of these changes you really had nothing to do with you, like I've heard the mention of structures other than buildings already existing here on the properties here, and yet that's one of the proposed changes, and that's what I also find confusing as to why buildings aren't adequate to cover what we want to do.
Sorry, about new buildings?
Anything you want to do on your property, which is the basis for the all of this now, so that the sale can take place, you have to have that change according to the letter. Maybe you didn't ask for it and somehow somebody thought that had to be changed, and we could just forget about that. Other structures, because that's a whole new area in terms of zoning that's gonna have to be discussed at some future date too. There's some, I counted, it's about 60 possible other than building structures, but only, 5 of them would even be remotely related, like a roller coaster and a water slide, stuff like that. So it just seems like you don't need that sort of thing. And so please, if you do, then somebody or the town, somebody's gonna have to make a case for why it has to be changed to include those sorts of things.
Commissioner, I believe that the verbiage was in there to, in the event that there was an acceptable structure that needed to be built and erected for this renewable energy initiative, that it could be posed to you, and the ability for us to come to you and have it approved would be there in the ordinance, versus if it were a smokestack for a pulp factory, then the answer is no, right?
Yeah,
But if it's something renewable energy related that would be deemed appropriate at that time by this commission, then at least the ability would be there to approve it. Right now, there's no element in here for us to be able to ask for even that permission to build such a structure.
But if it's for storage and things, there are exceptions where they could be called buildings because there are going to be people in them, and for fire and safety, they're classified as buildings.
I think they describe it here as structures, buildings or structures, so that covers
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, so I think you're okay with buildings myself, but.
So just in that vein, just to follow up to something you just said, Dan, would you be amenable to, if this commission proposed a slight change to C2, that limited any buildings and/or structures greater than 50 feet would need to be part and parcel of a renewable energy business concept, and only that?
I can't answer that. I think maybe Brandon can, but I would just voice my caution and concern with regard to the commission. What if there's some other avenue of pursuit technology-wise that doesn't fall under renewable energy, that's something that checks all the boxes? Now you still can't do it. But as it relates to coastal precast, I can defer to Brandon.
That was a good answer.
Since you don't seem to be in a huge hurry, are you against us taking more time to really work on this with you and with AIR? AIR, you have come before us before and asked for changes in zoning, and I am with you. There is no excuse for this zoning ordinance looking the way it looks.
I've come every 2 years now.
I know, I've been there,
The
but
Harbor District zoning, which was just thrown into Harbor District, that was right there with Waco, and it all fit, was just changed one day.
I know.
You can't build a 75-foot building on that piece of property. It's impossible.
Well, and you can't take zoning that was stiff, change the name, and not change a single thing in the requirements, because it's a totally different thing. So I would like to take a little more time. We're in no hurry. We have to come up with an answer by September 23rd, so at least you have that as a date, and then you go to the town council. Would that be agreeable? Is that agreeable to any of us here? Yes.
You know how many zoning administrators I've been through?
Honey, I have too, and and I haven't been here as long as you.
You know how many times I've been said, that they've said manana,
Yeah, I know,
right?
I know.
I find out at 11 o'clock yesterday that the last zoning administrator had something to do with the turmoil that's happened over the weekend. You have too. I just say, you know, at some point in time, set a goal. Let's say, how can we go forward? But don't leave it all the way out there. Let's say we're gonna work on warehousing, we're gonna work on this, and do it, not say we'll get to it.
I am with you, and I want to work on this. I'm a zoning geek, I love this stuff. So I would work with you on this, I would work with you on this. Instead of it being piecemeal, let's have it work for everybody.
Diane, we're gonna be back to you about the piece next to that, about a yacht business, that they're not scared of this. And it's damn exciting, and you've seen me grow that yacht center. I can't tell another company, wait till tomorrow, wait till tomorrow. It's not fair, it's not fiscally responsible to anybody. And so,
I'll ask her.
but no,
We
you
as
can't.
a body can
No,
ask
you
her.
can't, because when you have people looking at multiple locations and they're looking for a municipality to make it easy, that's what the companies do.
You know what? What everybody has to remember is once we make a decision on something like this, it is here forever. Therefore, to ask for 90 days to review it is not asking a lot.
The zoning's already there. We didn't ask you to change anything.
Oh, yeah, you're asking for the zoning change on the one
Yeah, but-
piece.
right, that one piece.
But you're also asking for a text change that then changes the zoning that's GBI on the larger piece of land. So you really are asking for the same thing with both of them. I could see where if you didn't get the zoning change on the smaller piece, it wouldn't be such a big deal. But if you could get the text amendment change, that would be
Well, let me
huge.
tell you, let me tell you where it might be a great deal. If you were gonna have an off-road vehicle, move big components or pieces from the big piece to Bay Shore's waterfront to be loaded, you gotta change some zoning on that. And
I know, but why can't we do that in the next 90 days? Why can't we work on that? Why does it have to be tonight? 90 days is 3 months. Are you planning on dying? I'm planning on
I've got to have a proposal to, excuse me.
Okay, all right.
I know.
Excuse me.
I do.
I've got a proposal I got to give to the wind, one of the wind companies we're looking at, he wants it end of July, middle of August. And this is part of our plan, obviously, to him. So we don't have 90 days, with all due respect.
Whoa, now that's something new.
It's a proposal, but I don't want to propose something we don't own.
Yeah, right. But that's his constraint, not ours.
Yes, that is your problem, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
Hey, Brandon, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
With regard to the parcel that we're talking about here, not other parcels, obviously, a great deal of the citizens here have voiced their concerns about nature, trees, wildlife, et cetera. With your assembly and storage plans for this parcel, do you envision a great deal of modification to this property to be able to do that?
Again, that would be on, I believe, as Air pointed out, if there was a building, it would obviously have to go there in the middle. We don't own that piece of property right there. What is that?
Yeah, this one.
Yeah, we
Right.
don't own that. So you'd obviously have to have some clearage for storage, but as Dan's already alluded to, our setbacks to Bay Creek are pretty drastic, not to mention the piece of property we're not even purchasing there. So in my vision, we would have a pretty good line of trees on both ends and kind of hidden away in there. And then our wetlands, the property we're looking to purchase, we've already started. We haven't looked into it too deep. We asked our guys at MSA what they kind of envision, which would be your BPE going near the roadside up there, and then making the wetlands push further south, and actually there's a way you can make it like a natural swamp kind of look for a DPE that they're really excited about. And that would go next to the Fuji building there, near the nature walk. So we wouldn't just be putting your typical, you know, hole for water to go to. We would try to make it, I guess, more naturalistic looking.
Like you've done on the concrete plant?
We haven't had any control over
You
that.
know, you understand why people aren't happy. I mean, they
I
get
know,
on
but
their
the
nature
concrete plant's
preserve
been there
trail and-
since 1960.
No, don't, yes, you're right.
Yeah,
But the changes you've made have not.
on
You
our
have
own
cut
property.
down a lot of trees that buffer, that are preserved. That's a problem. You've raised the level of the ground there, which is a problem. You cut into a dune, which is a problem. I don't know that you've made any requests for permits to do that, but you can see why people are a little bit upset, because they're thinking, the minute you get this land, you're gonna do whatever you wanna do, even though there are requirements that you not do that. So how do they know? How do they know that you're not gonna do that? And Katie, I know, it'd be wonderful, I'm sure you would enforce it, but you can't be sure Katie's gonna be here.
I understand and sympathize with the point, but I don't think that the 3 items that we're asking for limit or expand our ability to already do any of that, or our inability to do it.
Really?
Correct. No, I mean, are you asking us, you alluded to a point before, and I think Commissioner did as well. Based on the current by right uses, can you clear cut the property?
Yep.
Where?
That was,
Show me where that can be done.
Matter of fact, let's take it a step further.
and we don't want to do that,
Virginia
but
Economic
you
Development
can do that.
Partnership asked us in the beginning if we would consider clear cutting the property, subdividing it, so people could see what lots they could buy.
Who were they?
The Virginia Economic Development Partnership?
Why are they involved?
Because
they
they
control
help
the
bring
SNP at
business
one
into the county. They're the people that help people like Bayshore. Their tourism comes under the VE. Yeah, so there was even,
I think my point is that our concern, our joint concern for the trees isn't affected by the 3 requests that we have forth today. The destiny of the trees is already in the by right uses.
And I'm saying, what you wanna do is add or subtract 3 things to this. What I wanna do is rewrite this so that you can have what you want and the town can have what they want. So you're asking for 3 things, and I'm saying,
And what would
if
be
I
the,
make it, if you
of the
require-
3 things, what do you have issue with?
I'm not talking about the 3 things. You are asking
just
for
said you
3
wanted to
things.
modify the 3
I'm
things.
saying the entire thing needs 3 redos.
Well, that's, you know, that's, I understand that, but that's not what we're here for tonight,
It
okay?
is. If they are requesting a change, then.
We're not requesting a change.
No, we either approve it, or we disapprove it, or defer it.
That's up to town council.
That's right.
But
We're supposed to,
we're
that's
We're
right.
supposed to review this and give you our recommendation.
That's just what they're talking about.
That's right.
Not the overall zoning. Overall zoning.
So if we think the zoning is ineffective, we can't write a recommendation and send that
We're not
to
gonna
you?
discuss this now. It's up to town council to do the zoning.
That's right.
You guys are tasked by us to do the zoning.
Right.
And that is coming up in the near future, by the way. So
Yes, it is.
stick to this,
Okay, so,
just this.
all right, so,
That has nothing to do with it.
Ken has it.
I was just gonna suggest, maybe we start with the point of adding assembly and storage of products as a by right, and we decide on that one. We make that decision up, down, at this point if we can. Because I don't think that you can already do those things. So
They can't store. Yeah.
they can store on,
they can store, under F.
mean, for example, in GBI, you can store railroad cargo, containers, you can store all sorts of things.
Well, isn't that interesting? I know, and I know that the last time we considered this, we were asked, what does that exactly mean? And we never got an answer on that, so interesting that it's coming back to us.
I don't see this as
That's
being any
planning for
different
intermodal.
than those other by right uses that are already there.
If you look at
Right.
the size of some of these other by rights too, they're pretty significant. You know, post office with drop off and pick up and courier and parcel services, rail, terminals, including all bulk storage, a utility generating plant and transmission facility. These are by rights. We wouldn't even be talking about if that's what they were bringing.
Right.
What they're bringing is something relative to their business with clarifications, with height restrictions that would have to get a CUP. So, you know, in context there, you know, I don't really see a problem with those stipulations.
Unless you look at the M2, where they're not allowed to
But
do
M2 is-
storage, excuse me, they're not allowed to do storage. So what is the definition of storage that they would be allowed to do here that they can't do there?
That's M2. This isn't M2.
I understand that, but we have to compare the two in some ways, because this is allowing storage, and if we agree to that, and that is not, that doesn't allow storage.
That's a different industry, is the M2. I'm telling you, yeah, it's heavy industry. We're not talking heavy industry. So,
I think we are. I'm sorry, Bill.
So
it's
within
zoned-
M2,
It's zoned light industrial.
Yes, but when you look at what they're allowed to do, that is not light industrial. Especially if you look at M2, and that's heavy industrial, and you compare the two. M2, the heavy industrial, is
Three
more
changes does not make a different designation.
Pardon?
3 changes did not make a different designation. We're not talking about rewriting this zoning to match M2.
No, we are
Don't go
not.
there.
I'm
Just
not
don't go
going
there. All it is drama. Nothing more than drama. This is specific to light industrial. Now, whether or not these have muster, stand muster is another story.
Okay, let's, if there's no more discussion here, I'd like to have a motion on 7A1. Allow assembly and/or storage of products as a by right use under section 3.14B, paren 14.
Say the section again?
I
It's
think it's this.
section 3.14B, paren 14.
14.
Number 14. The one that says assembly and/or storage.
Okay, does that have anything to do with adding structures other than buildings?
No.
Okay.
so move.
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Me.
That's right.
Okay, let's go on to number 2. Allow buildings up to 75 feet in height with a required setback of 125 feet through a conditional use permit. Any discussion on that?
I think we need some more discussion on that, because that's gonna be a permanent change to the zoning amendments. And, as I know Air and everybody else know, there is another initiative that's been beginning. Many of us here have been on a task force that recognizes that hopefully soon the harbor will not be as it is now, but it will be, you know, it will become the pearl of Chesapeake and the whole East Coast with the shops and the buildings over it and the building, all of that. This 75-foot will need to be approved or disapproved, recognizing that that's not that far away, because that's a permanent change to the zoning.
It's a conditional, but it's a conditional use permit, so it has to be, go through the approval process as the zoning administrator has mentioned. It's for a conditional use permit, it's a 75.
So we can turn that down every time it comes to us.
That's right.
Absolutely, yes, yes, yes.
So that's not
That's-
gonna change
right.
the zoning.
The zone?
No, it changes the zoning,
Zoning
but
to
the thing
require
is,
conditional
the
use
decision,
permit.
yeah, the decision to allow or disallow comes down to the individual application for the conditional use. Okay?
Okay.
Any further discussion?
Diane, I don't want to give you a hard time. I'm just trying to get home to my dogs who probably already damaged the house.
Well, you know what? Unfortunately, that happens to be what we do on this.
I know, I know,
commission, is
I know,
we
I know.
can't wait to quit.
Yeah, I understand.
Go home. And that is why we don't make decisions we should.
I mean, is there something magic by 75? Should we just say greater
Well,
than 50?
you heard
Greater than
you heard the
50?
discussion.
Greater
He
than
said
50?
he doesn't know he doesn't know now.
Commissioner?
what-
Perhaps if we modify the language, it might benefit both parties. Right now, the max height is 50 feet, correct?
Correct.
So what if it were to read, allow buildings in excess of 50 feet to require the conditional use permit?
That's what I was going to suggest, that there's nothing magic by 75.
That covers both parties.
Why limit it to 75? I mean,
Well, we
why
do,
not greater than 50
I think
feet?
you want a cap of what would be the maximum building
Right.
height that anybody could ever even petition the town for.
Well, it's all covered by conditional use permit. That's not going to permit anything that's
220.
out of line.
Well, could you live with,
Wait, stop.
Go ahead, go ahead.
could you live?
We are changing the zoning text. This
Which-
has really, actually, should have nothing to do with what they're doing. This is whether or not we agree with these changes
Yes,
as
right.
being a good idea for this text.
For this text, it has to be finally approved by council.
That's right.
That's right, that's
Yep,
right.
right.
So, but when we get to the point where we're talking about changing the zoning, that's when we can talk about what they want to do and what, so we should not, thank you for making that suggestion, but
I was just making a suggestion because it looks
Yeah.
like you're going down the list here to determine whether or not
Besides the water tower.
any of these three would be permissible, and that's the second item. And if there was some chafe or frustration with regard to the 75-foot top end, exceeding the current height restriction of 50 would be an item that we'd have to approach the town for. I mean, and I don't know, maybe someday there is something that's 85
Katie,
feet tall that's
How
appropriate.
confident are you that the CUP process would be as a reliable way to reasonably constrain based on the language they're proposing?
I think in this regard, I think height is an important element to make people, any potential investor or developer aware of what would be a maximum height allowance you would even consider.
Okay.
I think that's really relevant, and I appreciate the offer, but I think just the removal of 75 feet actually would make this more onerous to the general public and their comments at large, saying height could then be unlimited, it could go to 100, it could go to 125.
Okay, fair enough.
I think we at least need to make sure the public knows through our documents what would be the maximum we would be willing to even potentially agree upon.
But would that include the wind, all the wind things we want for assembly? And if we, not just in this case, but if we want to make that one of the growth areas of the town? I mean, this is a zoning change, not in relate to any particular request here. Because, I mean, I think that's a growing industry that deserves some, you know.
All right.
So let me just ask the question for clarification. If I have a building that's 51 foot being proposed, it comes through a CUP, and I also have to have a setback associated with that of 125 additional feet.
Yes.
from residential.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah, that's fine, that's fine.
Abutting residential properties.
Yes.
Yeah, right. I just want to make sure the language is clear.
So it's not 125 feet from the closest industrial.
No, it's to residential
It's
property.
really just residential, I think, what, commercial office?
It's Mason Avenue.
So 75 is the notional number then that we picked, there's no specific.
It's an additional 125 feet from the required setback.
Of all
Yeah, so it's-
residential properties,
No,
but
right.
there's just not a lot of residential around it, so we protect two
Well,
sides, but we don't protect
That's
it in
the
the
cost
front.
of the
And
town.
remember, we've got a view from the other side of the harbor from our town.
There's also a 200-foot buffer.
Can you see a 75 or an 80 or a 90-foot tower? Can you see if there's no trees there?
You can't see the trees in that block of land from what side of town? I have land on both sides of that harbor, you can't see that 80-acre block. I can stand
I
right
can
there.
see the big square lot with no problem at all.
What square lot? The green
The
one?
91A, the one that's already zoned.
You can stand
Gee, we
on
got
that block? No, you can't.
All right.
You want a motion?
So, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, so I have a motion to accept the allow buildings up to 75 feet in height with a required setback of 125 feet through a conditional use permit.
125 feet from a residential property.
An additional 125,
Additional.
right? Because there's already a 200-foot buffer.
Right.
Yeah.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second.
I'm sorry, we're asking for clarification. Who made that motion? Thank you, Dennis.
Further discussion? Okay. Call for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I don't know how to say this. I don't have a problem with the 75 feet, but I have a problem with the entire text. So do I say aye or nay?
Or abstain.
Or abstain?
Or abstain? Could we make sure that the record shows that not just that I abstained, but why? Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
The whole text.
I have a problem with the entire text, the way it's written.
Yes, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. The application for zoning map amendment.
Oh,
Okay,
wait,
what
no,
about-
no,
No, there's more proposed changes.
Oh,
Any minor changes?
okay, I'm
You're
sorry.
letting Dennis get to you.
No, no,
So
no,
my-
no, no,
my
no.
que-
I'm sorry.
My question here is, if these are only applicable through our town lawyer to permitted uses, or is not applicable, that's what I heard.
Right, not,
Well, I have nothing else in here that's a non-permitted use. So it doesn't make sense to me.
Except for any structure or building at a greater height of, sorry, I've lost my sight, 40 feet,
Okay, so if it's a CUP,
50 feet?
then these come into play, and that still doesn't make sense.
it doesn't make
because
sense, no.
I'm
It
not saying
talks
it's, I'm
about
not saying
park-
it's a great ordinance the way it is currently in place today. I think this is where we are. We're trying to make these little tweaks. We've recognized, and I believe you've heard that from the town council, and it's in the budget, is funding to engage a consultant to help us look at an entire reexamination of the zoning ordinance. So we're well aware of that need, but I think as we've heard from various property owners, waiting for the town to actually take that action doesn't seem to come timely. And so we are trying to make little changes where we can see would help improve the situation
All right,
to
so
make
am
this
I
really a
meant
viable
to-
district.
Am I to believe then the additional development requirements apply to everything in this district?
No, they don't apply to anything in the district.
They apply only to anything that is a
Not permitted.
conditional use permit
Right,
application.
Okay, but we're talking about parking.
right.
What does that have to do with height and,
There are still parking requirements that would have to be adhered to
right?
under the town's zoning ordinance. Under Article 4, there's a whole section of general regulations that specify landscaping, parking requirements based upon your use categories, lighting requirements, signage. All of that is dealt through general regulation.
So,
And why
So
are
why
any of
do-
these
yeah, why do we have
changes
this
needed
here?
then?
Because again, this is part of a conditional use permit application under this zoning district. They are asking for an additional consideration and potential development requirements that could be imposed through that public hearing and application process. I'm not saying it's necessary in the long run, but this is how this zoning ordinance has been set up for, again, many years this way. So we weren't trying to change the entire ordinance because that means changing lots of chapters. That means changing your definition section. That means changing the general regulation section. That means changing the E&S section and wetlands and site plan and subdivision ordinance. So we were trying to see how we could best make some minor modifications to this ordinance, to this district, to make it more viable for a business concept proposal that has been pitched.
Can we get our town lawyer to write a statement rather than verbally give it to us?
No.
It does not make any sense. When I talk OSHA requirements in here, I talk parking requirements that have, and if it doesn't have any bearing on permitted uses, why is this whole section not eliminated?
Right.
Well, why do I have to change any of it? It doesn't impact the discussion that we had on this particular set of properties as to what they're planning on doing. And they just leave it the way it is and not have any changes.
Or just cut it out.
I'd ask for a recommendation, Katie. What?
We do feel that there is some contradiction in this section, and so we, from a staff perspective, are recommending these proposed changes to F. We do find them contradictory to what is considered acceptable uses. Like, for example, in number 7, striking that we felt was a reasonable consideration, because when you read the whole thing, it sounds like, well, no outside manufacturing. Well, that makes sense. You gotta read the whole sentence. It's associated with any trucks or equipment you're using for your business. So we're saying, well, wait, there can't be any trucks or equipment on the property for that use. That seems a little contradictory. I'm not sure we have that many, men of strength who can move some of this material.
Yeah,
I think
right.
you need equipment, you need trucks to
Yep.
do that work.
Okay, but again, if I go to permitted use and decide I'm going to have a rail yard, I'm gonna have all that equipment.
Sure,
Right.
and I
They're
think,
gonna be
again,
allowed to
we
have.
have heard, so if we use the potential business prospect that the concrete company has shared with us, of windmills, that would have to happen through conditional use permit.
Right.
And again, that would be equipment, materials, product, that I think would
I
be
beg to
relatively
differ.
heavy.
The only thing they have to bring to us is height requirements. That's it. There's no other explanation that they have to present to us.
You're
other than-
right, but they are indicating that that a large-sized building of a substantial height is an essential component to being effective in competing for these contracts for the wind towers. I don't think I'm misstating that impression or understanding from the applicants. So as part of that, these requirements would apply to any consideration to a conditional use permit. And as I read them, I would say, okay, well, we would say we'd give you a building, 75-foot building, to put your wind turbine blades, except you can't have any trucks on the property to move them around.
Yeah, that makes no sense. Yeah.
That's how number 7, I'm hitting number 7
Yeah, right.
first. That's how that reads to me. As your zoning administrator, that's how I would interpret it and apply it and tell them, okay, you can have that building, but they all better be made of feathers. Because that's the only way you're gonna move it around.
Katie, am I to understand F, additional development requirements, only applies to conditional use permit?
Applications.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
I agree with everything the zoning administrator is saying, and I understand your concerns. But I guess what I'm offering this is the interim step to we get to the larger fix. Okay, this whole thing needs to be addressed.
Yes,
And to not
case in point.
to not hold up something one more time. We're trying to just to meet the This was just deemed
A bridge.
an awkward bridge.
A bridge.
To get us to the final fix.
Okay.
And hopefully within, the next 9 months or so, we'll be talking about a larger fix.
And why can't we get that in writing from the attorney?
I'm not prepared to discuss that here.
You're what?
I'm not prepared to discuss that here.
Okay, further discussion? So can I have a motion to approve all the red?
Do them one at a time, just,
Oops, sorry.
Go ahead.
Back.
Or do we need, can I do them in a bulk, or do you want to have them one at a time?
You can do it in a bulk.
You can do all of the proposed changes in F.
That's what I was gonna say.
As a
So do
whole.
I have a motion to approve all the proposed changes in F, additional development requirements?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
still not sure I like the idea of striking sirens and other devices.
Well, that would only apply if your 75-foot building had a siren or a device on it.
Right.
So you don't have to
Okay.
worry about that.
Okay.
That's how much sense that makes.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
All right. B, application for zoning map amendment, rezoning 1201 Bay Shore Road, tax map number 90-8-1A1 from Industrial District M2 to General Business Light Industrial H1. Make recommendation to Town Council.
No, from
That's-
Harbor.
See, that's not right. It's from
It's
Harbor,
Harbor.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
from
From Harbor.
You have it,
Yeah.
and here it says from,
Yeah.
it's from Harbor. So let me restate that. Application for zoning map amendment, rezoning 1201 Bay Shore Road, tax map number 90-8-1A1 from Harbor to General Business Light Industrial H1. Make recommendation to Town Council.
And that is how we actually advertise it. So legally, we did meet that advertising requirement. It sounds like we had a slip up in the final agenda that went to the commission.
Okay.
Discussion? Okay, can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I do. If you look at this proposed zoning and then you look at all the zoning, it's an awfully big area of industrial type use. Are we prepared to make that decision tonight? This is what okay. You've got this and this and this, and you've got this. Here,
No,
want
this
to do
is-
this.
That's the only one we're talking about
Okay.
tonight.
But now, what does that mean? And it said in one of the letters, precedent, that set a precedent. So is this setting a precedent for some of this other land here?
Sure, because
So
they're both from the same zoning ordinance, the same zoning level, I should say. Because if you look just one block over, that's already zoned GBI, GBLI.
Yeah.
So that gets impacted the same way.
No, I know, I agree, that's what I'm
Okay.
saying.
Yeah, right.
All of this is gonna be industrial, except that one little piece there that isn't yet.
No.
No,
it's not.
Well, let's clarify.
98, 1A3?
1A3, from my
No.
review, is already GBI H1.
Then why does this say harbor on
Well,
it?
we had a discussion, and that's what Katie was saying. She needs to go back and clarify that particular piece. But
Right,
that at one
right.
time was PD STIP and is now considered GBI
That's-
H1.
This isn't yet.
Coastal Precast on that, right?
Yes, they do. So all I'm saying is, do you want to take this whole area and include this square here and make all that industrial? Maybe it will all be industrial. When you change this, that allows them to do what they want with this. All of this is then zoned.
No, the
some
rest,
form
the rest of that
industrial.
area, no, the rest of that area, you still got, what you're showing there is the harbor district still. That,
Yeah, well, so is this property we're looking at tonight.
I understand that.
Remember when you
Unless,
call
Katie,
it-
is this still harbor?
So, Mr. Grossman and I had a conversation earlier this afternoon relative to parcel 1A3.
Yeah.
And we are trying to track down the records from town council when they have voted various zoning changes over the years, map amendments. Part of the challenge we're having is there were not always physical maps included
Right.
in the packets.
Yeah.
So we're trying to verify if this parcel has already gone to an industrial, light industrial zoning classification,
And not harbor.
or is it really still at harbor?
Yeah.
Are we sure 1A1?
But it's not part, but go ahead.
Are we sure 1A1 is harbor?
Yes, we are.
So there's no question on that one, just
There is no
1A3.
question on 1A1.
Okay.
It is harbor.
Okay.
Yes.
And your other references to the 3 blocks that are labeled industrial M2 are not impacted.
They're not, they're staying M2. They're already M2,
No,
they're
no,
staying M2.
I guess you're not understanding. How do I make this clear?
Go ahead.
In some.
This is industrial, M2 is industrial,
Right,
GBI is light industrial,
right.
right?
But not
So
exclusively.
now we have this much area either heavy or light industrial.
Correct.
Are we willing
Yes,
to make
yes,
that decision
yes,
tonight?
absolutely,
That's what I'm
absolutely.
asking.
Yep, okay.
Because we call it GBI, doesn't mean it has to be light industrial. There are many non-industrial uses of that zoning. Everything from food production to communications to,
Municipal
art
services.
galleries, hotels. There's lots of things that can be done there. It does not, it's not forcing this into an industrial park. So, I mean, could it be used that way? Absolutely. But it doesn't force it into that.
Right.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, any other discussion?
All right, so again, the motion is very clear, limited to 90-8-1A1
Right.
Yeah.
being rezoned from harbor to
GBI.
GBI H1.
Because that is all you've advertised for public hearing.
Right, which
That's
is
it.
important,
That's
yeah,
right.
right.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
All right. Do we have any other business?
Let me jump back, hang on, I'm coming. I think we have some announcements.
We have a work session on July 19th at 3 PM here at the Civic Center.
What are we discussing at that work session? Do you remember?
Introduction.
The
Introduction.
introduction?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is, again,
This is the
continued work
comp
on the
plan, that's
comprehensive
the comp
plan.
plan,
Okay.
work session.
Thank you for your attendance, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And our next regular session's August 6th.
August 6th. Okay.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.